one large development should it ever develop commercially in the future. But I don't think the intent of that mixed use land use designation is for each parcel at a time. And again, we would not allow that use in this city.
And so just to help her out a little bit with this request, we send it to the planning or Wilson County Planning Commission. Should we accept staff's recommendation, which is a negative recommendation, what would be her next step to follow through? Because they can or don't have to listen.
Right. So the county will not place it, according to Georgia at the Wilson County Planning Office, the county will not place it on the county commission's agenda with a negative recommendation from us unless the applicant applies for another application to move on to the county commission. I forget the terminology that
Sure.
she used, but so it probably would die tonight if you guys gave it a negative recommendation unless they asked for it to go on with that negative recommendation.
And then correct me if I'm wrong, if that happened, they would have to post a sign on that property that they were going to Wilson County. Is that correct?
I believe. Bobby, do you know what your public notice requirements are for rezones in the county?
I think it's
The same. I think that
same.
I know the
I
adjoining
think-
property owner, she would definitely get a letter in the mail for sure.
Which is why I'm here.
Yeah,
Right.
Because I got the letter. And I don't know if you guys need to see, like, this is the view from my front porch.
Sure.
And this is the property that's expected to, or
Yeah.
that is applying. You can have this if you want to pass that up to him.
I'll keep it for
Yeah, if we want to put it on record, you can give it to Mrs. Hamlin. We can put it in record. Basically, just because I was off mic to just to get that into the record, was simply showing us a picture of her view and the adjacent property to kind of get what you just said on the microphone to the record. Commissioner Franklin is a member of our planning commission, but also a county commissioner. He's got one comment back for you. Commissioner Franklin, please.
Yeah, I do know that the county commissioner is adjacent to my district, and she's pretty much against this. And if it does go forward at the county, I think whenever a county commissioner isn't in favor of a zoning, it is a very small chance of success.
I have talked to Diane on several occasions about this request, and she does not support it either.
Very good. That help?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Next. Name and address for the record, please.
I'm Devon Johnson. I live at 234 Cedar Creek Drive in Mount Juliet. And I wanted to talk about, what do you call it, 11-1? The amendment for Wind Tree Pines.
Yes, ma'am. That would be
Okay.
correct.
That backs up right to my backyard. And all of us along Cedar Creek Drive, I'm here for all of us. And we don't want that in our backyard. We've already got too many houses, and there's too much traffic on Nonaville Road. There's already a new subdivision being built across from that Dollar General, and it's just too much traffic. And there's pollution and noise and urban sprawl. We don't want that where we are. And when the golf course is there, everything that goes on that piece of land has an effect on that creek that runs all along our backyards. When the golf course was there was all kinds of weird green stuff in the water. And if you go back there and start digging and making houses, and it's going to do something to that creek, because it always does. And it's a real tricky creek. It likes to flood. Even though we have a bridge now, the creek likes to flood. And as far as having this whole subdivision, we got enough. We have enough houses and enough subdivisions and enough traffic. And we just have enough of all of this urban sprawl. And it's as if every place you find a piece of land, these developers come in and they got to put something on it. And we have too much already. And we're thinking what other things could be put on this golf course. And people thought maybe a nice park where we could walk or run, a dog park, because there's a lot of dogs here. And Well, nobody's really happy about it, and we just don't really need all of these houses and trouble and everything on this. They put a Dollar General on Nonneville Road, and that's a bad sign. It's a sign that it's getting ready to become more urban sprawl up on our side, north side of Lebanon Road. And we don't want that to happen to us. This is where we live. It's our home. We go in our backyard and we like the peace, the tranquility, and we're not going to have that anymore if you go and you keep putting houses. And that's just going to back up to our backyards, and it's just going to be bad. And, you know, I work here. I live here. I pay taxes here. I get my speeding tickets here. I pay a lot of taxes like a lot of people. And, you know, please calm down with all of this sprawl and houses. And that's just all we need to say. We've had enough, and we would like it if y'all would just chill and quit building so much. And we don't want that in our backyards, please. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next. We good? Very good. Thank you. Oops. There we go. All right. Seeing no additional citizen comments at this time, we'll move forward with the first item on our agenda. First item on our agenda is item 4.1, minutes approval from the Planning Commission regular meeting minutes from December 17th of 2020. Any adjustments, typos, errors, corrections? It's a motion for approval by Commissioner Searcy, second by Commissioner Floyd. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? So approved. Next up, took a breath. It's a long consent agenda, so I'm going to take a breath before reading this one out. Next is our consent agenda. We'll begin with item 5.1, the Batson Mapco property sewer letter of credit number 201-81008 in the amount of $146,880 can be released. Item 5.2, Kelsey Glenn, Phase 4, Section 3, Development Letter of Credit Number SLC 00005280 in the amount of $63,384.18 can be released. Item 5.3, review the final plat for Baird Farms, Phase 2C, located at Providence Trail. Item 5.4, review the final plat for Jackson Hills, Phase 5, Section 5B, located at Planters Trail. Item 5.5, which is a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners, is to review the annexation request for 815 John Wright Road. Item 5.6, review the rezone request for 258 West Division Street. Item 5.7, review the Wilson County rezone requests for 1491 Nonneville Road. Item 5.8, review the rezone request for 8540 Central Pike in Wilson County. Item 5.9, review the site plan for the Mount Juliet Fire Station Number 2, located at North Green Hill Road. Item 5.10, review the land use plan amendment for Hamilton Dennison Park, located at Tate Lane. Item 5.11 is a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners. It is to review the Hamilton Dennison Park annexation request located at Tate Lane. Item 5.12, review the Hamilton Dennison Park site plan located at Tate Lane. Ms. Hamilton.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify on that Hamilton Denson Park that we're changing these land use plan to Parks and Recreation just so it's in keeping with the use for a park. It'll still be the residentially zoned, the RS40, but we were just trying to capture that land use designation. And also I wanted to clarify too, item 5.8 is a negative recommendation from staff to the county commission for the reasons I stated in citizen comments.
Yes, ma'am.
Other than that, staff recommends approval with any conditions attached.
1 second. Questions or comments for Ms. Hamlin?
So on the park, the parking places, the number of parking spots, how many are at Mundy Park? Because based on the greenway right now and what people are going to be using, is that enough parking there?
It meets our code, and I honestly couldn't tell you how many spaces were at Monday. I wish I had known sooner. I would have tried to
No,
get a
that's
count
okay.
for
That's
you,
an
but
awful question,
that's
I saw
okay. But it
in-
does meet our code.
And you go there, and when I saw, was it 6 Fields? And that place is overrun with cars. You can't,
Mhm.
you can barely get a bike through there. So it just seems like, you might need to think about more parking there.
Yeah, maybe we could acquire more property at one time, but more parking means less fields.
Maybe Victory will.
Yeah. So I think they were just trying to maximize that
Okay.
field space, but it does meet our code, their parking. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barlow.
I did want to follow up on Commissioner Mullally comment on Baird Farms Phase 2C. Staff is in support of aeration of the ponds out there. We do see that as something of an issue. Obviously, I think the big understanding there is that would be turned over to the HOA. It would be a maintenance concern for them, I think. But I believe the residents there are definitely in support of that. One thing I did want to mention is this Phase 2C, while that pond is not within this section does flow to that pond. So that is important consideration. Additionally, on the time frame, the project engineer is here, Ryan Lovelace. He might be able to speak a little bit more on the time frame and completion and what might be working for them and expectations there.
So that would be a recommendation of staff to support that, to add aeration to that pond.
That is correct, yes.
Very well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. We have representation in the crowd on this one, so we'll ask him to speak. Name and
Sure.
address for the record.
Sure. Good evening, Ryan Lovelace, Civil Site Design. We're okay with that, I guess, but if we could give us a little more time because it needs to dry up because we have to run electric back to those ponds, and it's just a sloppy mess right now. It'd make those people really unhappy. So, well, I know we could start by April 1, and we would definitely work with staff to get it done as quickly as possible. It's the electric that's going to take some time to get back there because it's just wet with the snow and the rains and the spring rains we're about to get. So, how about could we say June 1st, we will have it completed. I'm afraid the pumps are going to take a little while to get because pumps are so far backed up with the COVID situation. That's my fear. But we will do as fast as we can. We can May 1st if that's what it needs to be.
90 days.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're going to do as fast as we can.
Sure.
I mean, we want to be good neighbors here. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, thanks.
I got you. Any further questions or comments from the commission at this time? Regards to any item on our consent agenda? At this time, we'll take citizen comments in regards to any item on our consent agenda. Is this one where I need to be, Jill? Is this one where I need to be watching, or are we okay to move forward? We okay to move forward?
Jerry, what did you call for?
Any citizen comments in regards to any item on our consent agenda? Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay. You have something? Oh, yeah, yeah. We have no choice. Yeah, we're all good? Fantastic. Thank you. For those at home that can't see some of my hand signals and smoke signals or whatever we're throwing across the room, there we're trying to, in our social distancing, trying to be mindful of anyone wishing to make comments. So as with everything new, we're working out the kinks and making sure everybody has an opportunity to speak. So at this time, we'll close our citizen comments and ask for a motion in regards to excuse me. Before we ask for that motion, I do need to close our planning commission meeting in order to open a public hearing. Public hearing is in regards to item 5.3, review the final plat for Baird Farms Phase 2C located at Providence Trail. Also, item 5.4, review the final plat for Jackson Hills Phase 5, Section 5B located at Planters Trail. Anyone wishing to make a comment on either of those two items during the public hearing? Welcome and encouraged to do so. Seeing no citizen comments, we'll close our public hearing, at which time we'll reopen our planning commission meeting. And I am looking for a motion in regards to the items on our consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with staff comments and the additional comment based on Baird Farm. And also that would include a negative recommendation back to the Wilson County Commission on 5.8 and a positive recommendation on the other items.
I would like to second that with just a quick slight addition to that. The addition would be just to clarify that on 5.3 to say that developer installs a retention pond by May 1st of 2021. Or aeration within the retention pond by May 1st of 2021. Would that be okay?
Yes. Do we specify the retention pond?
Yes. Good. All right. That's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? So approved. Jennifer, do we need to make sure that we got the city attorney on? We're not going to adjourn our meeting, but we're going to stay live right now. Bear with us. We are just trying to make sure that we do have our city attorney online with us. Looks like he's back. No audio?
It's frozen.
Can you hear me now?
I got you. I can.
Oh, perfect. Third time's a charm.
We good to go? All right. Fantastic. We're back. With that being said, we'll move forward to our next item on the agenda. It falls underneath the mass grading and industrial design standards waiver. It's item 6.1, which is review the Beckwith Farms Lot 9 mass grading plan and request for an industrial design standards waiver. Mrs. Hamill.
Thanks. I will actually let our Public Works talk to you about the mass grading portion of this application, but I did want you to take note that they have provided a tree protection plan as part of this mass grading, which the reason that I bring that up is because of the request that they are asking for the industrial design standard waiver to allow the tilt-up concrete as proposed, the tilt-up concrete building. Our requirements call for 100% brick or stone, which they feel is incredibly difficult to do and very costly. Staff wouldn't typically support such a request, but this is one of the last lots there on Volunteer Boulevard, and it's at the end of that cul-de-sac. And I feel like if we had an all brick warehouse there, it would probably stick out like a sore thumb. And the reason that I bring up that tree protection plan is because I feel like that would provide additional screening there along I-40, except for that second building that's closer to I-40. However, due to the grading, it'll be approximately 18 feet below I-40. So staff does recommend the approval of the waiver to allow the tilt-up concrete on those two buildings. They wanted to get before you guys before they invested in their engineering to see if this would be acceptable to you guys. So that's why you're seeing that before a site plan.
How many stories is this? Or how tall?
I think the max in industrial is 70 feet. It could be 35. I'll have to look. 35. 35 in industrial. 35.
So it's 35 feet tall?
Are you sure? Oh, they're proposing 35 feet, so 3 stories.
Very well.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Turner?
So, microphone here, excuse me, thank you. So it sounds like, because this is going to be right adjacent to I-40. And
Yes,
so it
sir.
sounds like that what you're saying then, Ms. Hamlin, is that there's going to be a tree preservation site or
It's a tree
survey.
protection plan. Yes, sir. Let me get you the page number so you can see that.
Will there be additional trees planted as screens of this warehouse so that when people are driving down I-40 heading west, that there'll be additional screening, or is it just going to be?
I don't believe there's room for that in along the I-40 there. You can see how close it is on sheet C201 and as well as on sheet C1.00. But they are committing to leave as many trees possible there along I-40 because that was one of my biggest concerns that I expressed to them in the very beginning when they brought this request in.
Do we know the width of that buffer, of what that's going to look like, or the width of that buffer between, what's mowed on from the state and then what?
Well, there's the 20-foot access easement that goes along I-40 to allow access to that cemetery back there. So that could give you a good idea of what would be undisturbed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I can't really see a picture of 40.
So do you
And
know
how-
where Under Armour is when you're traveling westbound? So it's the lot just across the street from
Yeah.
Under Armour.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this second building would be visible from I-40, but again, it's going to be a lot lower due to
Yeah.
the grading that that's going to take place on
Yeah.
site. So that'll help along with the tree protection plan that they have proposed. I did talk to Joe today about a buffer, a landscaped buffer, but they felt like that was going to have a net zero on their mass grading, and then they would have to take out more. Is that accurate? To build that berm.
Yeah.
So they're trying to just keep that net zero on the
Uh-huh.
mass grading.
Uh-huh. Okay. Do we know what that elevation is going to look like from the freeway? Is
Yes,
it all going
sir.
to be the same? Will there be?
So if you want to look at the south elevation, that building faces south there. So you would be looking at the side of that building there. It's on the last sheet, A2.1.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And again, I'll let our Public Works Department discuss any other questions about the mass grading portion of this request if you don't have any other questions about the elevations. No?
Hope y'all are doing good tonight. We would like to add 2 comments that we did not have on our comments that were submitted to you guys. The first one, it's going to be kind of clear if you see it on page C2.02. We want all slopes to be 3-to-1. So no riprap stabilization on 2-to-1, everything 3-to-1. Max. Or flatter, we would say 3-to-1 or flatter.
For
Second
anybody that might not understand that,
So basically, so you go 3 foot out, 1 foot down, vertical, horizontal slopes. 3-to-1 is probably the most max allowed that we would say for mowing ability, and flatter as you go. So 4 to 4, 5, 6-to-1 is flatter you go, the easy to traverse. So
perfect.
And the second comment that we have is to get my bearings straight on this. On the south side of the property, we'd like to request a retaining wall right there at those slopes at the south side of the building going across. Yes. Yes, sir.
What will those requests do to my earlier comment to Mrs. Hamblin about the screening between the buildings and I-40?
Nothing really. It's more for slope stability.
Thank you.
Further questions? So, thank you. Let's go ahead and call for representation of this item. Name and address for the record.
Good evening, Joe Haddock, Civil Site Design Group, 2305 Klein Avenue. Guess we could start with the new conditions, or Mr. Turner, I could address the current plan provides approximately 25 feet from the state right-of-way line to the edge of our grading. So Ms. Hamlin and I discussed the possibility of a berm. As Ms. Hamlin described, the site falls off. So we felt like to create a berm, we'd have to take out all the existing trees, plant new trees on the berm, kind of counterproductive in our opinion. One thing we've also done with this concept layout, as y'all will know, driving down the interstate, the Hollister building sits directly adjacent to this site. So Hollister buildings turn 90 degrees. So it runs parallel with the interstate. You're seeing the broad side of the building. We've purposely laid this building out so you're seeing the short end. The retaining wall comment from Public Works, we do anticipate a wall there. We're just not showing it with the mass grading. That you'll see that with the final design. The wall will just be visible from anybody on our site. I would like to ask on the 3-to-1 slope max, historically coming before you all and working with Public Works, we've been allowed to go beyond, like, so a 2-to-1, 2.5-to-1 slope, as long as a letter from the geotechnical engineer is provided saying that they observed the slope construction, they've monitored all the earthwork, and that slope is stable. You can see on the plan, we're noting that slope to be riprap, so big, large rocks on it. No maintenance involved with that. We don't have to worry about mowing it, weeding it. So I would like consideration of that item. You know, the slopes are there purposefully, so we're not pushing towards that TDOT right of way, and it allows us to preserve as many trees as possible. So would like to.
If we reduce the slope, you're going to reduce your site size.
Yeah, I mean, or I'm going to request to push my top of my cut on my grading to 10 feet off the TDOT right away. And now I'm taking out more trees, pushing it that way. I'm not aware of anything in code that says I can't go 3-to-1. I know we've worked through this in the past, especially these large projects. You have a geotechnical inspector on site during all grading operations. I mean, they're observing everything being constructed. We've provided letters, the reports, some rather large projects in the community that seem to have turned out real well. So we'd ask for the same consideration on this project.
Did you mean to say there's no code against 2-to-1, not no code against 3-to-1?
You
said 3-to-1.
Out of 1,500 pages, it might be in there somewhere, but
okay. You haven't read it?
I mean, I have, but I'm prone to forget one or two things.
Yeah. I got off of that real quick. A couple quick questions. Your FFE on the building is going to be 6015.
Yes.
Do you know what the FFE of 40 is in comparison? Or where your benchmark pin is to identify that?
The grade at the property line is approximately 620, and it comes up another couple feet off
Grade
the
at
edge.
the property line for the
At
south side
at 40. Yeah.
Is it 620?
Yes.
So you're sitting below grade.
At the property line, and if memory serves, at that point, it's sloping off 40 coming down to the property line a little bit.
So even though you're so you got a 20-foot difference basically between the two existing. So when you mass grade and you finish, your building's going to sit at 601. You're going to build a 30-foot building. So realistically, from the elevation from the interstate to your building,
Looks like a single story building,
you're about
15 feet.
15 feet above the interstate.
Yep.
Is where you sit when it all comes in.
Right. With the trees, existing tree mass obstructing your view.
My other question is, should we want to go that direction? I don't know. On the tilt up, can we use a pattern tilt up instead of just the single panel tilt ups like that, or the 3-panel or 4-panel, I guess is what you're showing on those? Can you adjust your panels to give a brick panel look on those forms instead of just doing the single panel forms on the tilt ups? So you'd have the appearance of the brick on your tilt up instead of just a monolithic pattern. So just adjust your forms. Name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Sean Flood. I'm with Design Constructors. I'm the architect for this
Thank you.
building. Address is 2971 Craft Drive in Nashville. We are proposing a number of elevation differences on these, several styles of materials. We have obviously the different colors on it. We can look at doing some different patterns. I think form liner is what you're talking about, to give some appearances of different texture.
Sure.
We will certainly look into that for sure.
Yeah, not necessarily looking at that towards the, in particular, your south elevations right there, anything that faces the interstate, west, east. To me, if you're going around those 3 sides, we might as well go 4 just to add a design element to it. Don't disagree with the construction type or whatnot on that tall of a building for a warehouse, but would like it, should the use change, it sure helps its marketability. Should it be aesthetically pleasing
Sure.
for a multiple use outside of a warehouse or some kind of a tenant rebuild down the road?
Generally speaking, we put a lot of emphasis on the street facing side, as where visitors and employees would come into the building because they're the people who are closest to it.
Mhm.
So that's where we tend to put the most effort. You see in these elevations, we have our entry elevations that really speak to people and tell them where to come. Usually the back side of the building is not seen by very many people. And in this distance, when
unique.
you see it, you'd be going pretty fast when you drive past the building. So I'm not sure that somebody would really recognize that texture, but we will certainly look into it.
When they see that Under Armour sign before that, you already caught their eye with that logo sitting right there before you. So
It's
that eye
very
is
red.
turned and focusing that way.
Very.
That's true.
Yeah, Under Armour's going to capture you before that right there.
That's right.
Very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Turner?
So we're talking about the view of the building. I'm not sure if we're going to have HVAC on top of the building. Would that be screened?
We have not completely worked through the heating and air system for this. Generally speaking, the office areas are conditioned, and sometimes, or most times, the warehouses are not. So there aren't very many rooftop units on the buildings, but we will work to minimize those to the greatest extent we can.
Okay, thank you.
Chuck, we would make that requirement. That's required, especially due to the visibility of the building,
Yeah.
the top of the building from the interstate. So
Yeah.
we'll make sure to capture that when they come in for a site plan.
Very good, thank you.
I did want to speak a little bit more to the grading that Shane had mentioned there, and Joe had discussed as well. Our code points to 3-to-1 slopes as allowed. Also, could be increased, steeper by approval of the city engineer. However, we've seen enough slope failures in recent history. We've got one in Del Webb. I don't know, Del Webb threw $1 million at and still didn't fix it. We've also had one pretty severe one in Hickory Hills as well. We've seen some 2-to-1 slopes out there that have had failures. These are some that have been geotechnically engineered. You can still, you can have them. They could be well designed and they could work, or they might not. Given the issue over here with the proximity to the interstate. If you turn to the sheet C 1.0, one of the things I did want to point out, there is a 20-foot access easement, it says for cemetery and billboards. There's obviously a billboard right here. You can see the grades actually extend over that, probably by about 2 to 4 feet maybe. So you're talking about getting these steep slopes relatively close to the TDOT right of way. If it did have failure, you're talking about failure within the TDOT right of way. One of the things that we want to look at when we look at the steep slopes, what's the risk of failure? Do you have something that cause a major problem if it failed or not? And that's largely a consideration for us. So you see that they are going 2 to 1s here, and on the southeast corner of this property, they are 2 to 1s, and they're still probably 5 feet or so within the controlled access fence for TDOT. So, which is within that access easement, which I do have concerns over that for sure. So, those are the considerations there. I think, consider the risk areas that we're looking at there. Particularly, we're concerned about the south side of the site.
Further questions or comments? Please.
Chris Ferrari, 3091 Kleinert Avenue, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Thanks for taking the time tonight, guys. I want to address the form liner comment real quick on the south side of the building. Given that the height elevations between the road and the building, we're talking about 15 feet, the trees should be able to obstruct most of that kind of drive-by traffic visual to the building itself. We looked at form liners at doing other pieces of the building, kind of more architectural articulation, aside from masonry. Adding it to all 4 sides does dramatically increase the cost to the point where it becomes an unviable investment. I know that's not necessarily y'all's problem, but it's something we care a lot about, obviously. As far as if there's something that has to be done on that south side, I think we can look at maybe articulating a few items. That way, maybe from the actual passerbys, if there's a concern, but I would like to restrain from doing it on the entire building itself. So, and we do have a couple items on the front entryways and the corners that have some of that form liner, I think, that go vertical. So we could take that design element and maybe put it on that far southeast corner. That way, that's a limited area. I don't think it would be cost imperative too much, but doing it in its entirety around the building would be. So, appreciate it.
Thank you. Staff question. If we grant the variance for as a waiver to the commercial design standards, and then when the project is submitted to us for its site plan, at that time where they could add through the liners, change this elevation, we're going to green light them, but give them time to give us an architectural rendering showing new designs or some of these forms in there. At that time, can we basically say, here, you're granted the variance, but you need to listen to us here, and then still have control on its site plan? And if it's not aesthetically pleasing, be able to also control it at its next stage? Or if we just grant this, it's just, here, I can do what I want?
I'll let Charles chime in, but I think that's why they're here tonight, to get your feedback so they won't have any surprises when they come in for a site plan.
Sure.
So you can approve it conditionally. For instance, provide that stamping on a certain elevation. And if you don't like it, when they bring it in for a site plan, maybe they can revert back. But that's really their intent, is to solidify that waiver tonight.
Gotcha.
I was going to add, alternatively, we can go ahead and get the grading plan out of the way and then deal with the design waiver once there's a better idea of what the design is going to be.
But what I think that they're wanting is, before they invest in the mass grading and additional engineering, want to know if we're willing to grant them a waiver to the commercial design standards before they even spend any more money out there.
Correct, because I don't feel like they would move forward with the project if their waiver wasn't approved tonight. And they wouldn't go forward probably with mass grading. Am I correct in saying that?
So, Mr. Michaels, on that, if we granted the commercial design waiver and they're in here for feedback, but we grant it tonight, and then they come back for site plan and it's not to the desire of what we have communicated and expressed tonight, can we hold their project at site plan because it's still not aesthetically pleasing, but it technically meets, we've given them the waiver?
Right. We can't give them the waiver and then come back later and say, well, we don't like the way this looks.
This color or that color.
Right. I mean, once we give them the waiver, we've given it to them. I mean, the language from the industrial regulations is the planning commission may waive any of these design requirements upon a showing by the developer that alternative materials will achieve a same or similar design result and be compatible with other buildings and structures in the vicinity. So my issue, I guess, with the planning commission approving it is that they aren't necessarily certain what the design and materials are going to look like right now.
Okay, thank you. You had a comment, Ms. Hamlin?
Actually, what you have in your packet is the design that they're,
So this is what
Yes,
they're
sir.
seeking to build on this site.
yes.
Please.
Yeah, sorry. I want to make sure y'all understand the intent of what we're trying to do is, and we took a lot of time to drive and look at the other facilities out there. And albeit that the full masonry design intent is cost bearing for us, we did want to make sure that what we present and build, what we build out there is actually, better than, equal to or better than the most recent and built facility on that roadway, so that our buildings stand out as, since they are one of the last ones there, they're kind of a more advanced architectural design and built than the ones out there currently. And so we did make an effort to do something equal to or better, hopefully better is what we're thinking. And as far as the consideration, as far as approval with condition, I could agree to and recommend that if y'all provide approval for us, maybe a condition is to further work with planning commission to come to satisfactory elevation on that south side, that we can work with them as we continue to design and invest dollars to kind of advance architect team and engineering team. But we would be willing to work with them to make sure that what is presented with approvals with a condition is satisfactory.
So this is going to be, if you do this type of construction, it'll be more cost effective for you on that, and I understand that. And then the cost to do the forms out there is more as well. What if, trying to be conscious of each and to be understanding of that, what if you took I'm looking at your paint color legend on item A 2.1. What if you just formed, if we identified the section noted as painted concrete tilt-up wall panel with the SW7074 color denoted as software, and did it in that cross-section right there across the top, which would almost be a parapet wall at times. And not being familiar with that type of construction, not knowing what it could do, but we just got finished discussing that really your visual sight line on this would be towards about 15 feet of the building. So it just kind of covers that. So if we just identify that section, just says, do us some stamping, do us some texture, do us something within your SW7074 section.
I'm not trying to push
No,
against
no.
that comment.
Yeah.
I'd just recommend, instead of 7074, since that is at the base of the building, I think the intent would be achieved better if you make that, I guess, condition on 7076, which is kind of at that darker color, darker gray at the top.
Yeah,
'Cause
that's
actually
what
what would be seen from the highway.
mine shows it as 7074. Oh, you're talking about the 7076 is a black band.
Yeah.
And then above it, I show your 7074 is your top cap just below your coping.
Because if you look at east elevation number 2, or
Is that right?
the
Yeah.
ones that have that vertical formwork component to it, we already have that formwork integrated into the building. And I think you can even see it on one of the elevations. It's that vertical component.
Mhm.
So we could take that same architectural detail, run it horizontally towards the top. I would recommend that it go into 7076 so it matches that vertical component. But we could look at 7074 is fine. But I just want to make sure I understood you correctly that it was at the top, which I think should be okay.
Yeah, not necessarily saying you got to stamp it all. And if I'm looking at it, I'm on A21.
That's what we're looking at as well.
And your 7076 in mine is called cyberspace. And that's really I show it as your middle band on it.
Correct.
So you'd rather do that middle band right there?
It's the darkest gray on, I guess, and we're both talking about A2.1 elevation 3 west elevation, which is that southern.
So cyberspace, even though it looks black right here, it's really
Yeah.
more of a deep charcoal gray or something.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. That's where you were confused me when you were saying gray. I'm like, man, that is,
It's all-
looks,
it's all
looks
different
black
colors of
right
gray.
there. Yeah, I got to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the intent is for it to be that facade that faces the highway, correct? And I believe if y'all granted us approval with that condition, I think we're more than happy to work with planning commission staff to achieve that. They want this one. And just to be clear, you're referring to the larger building, the one that is not 100% shielded by the trees, because the smaller facility is deeper within the site.
Yeah, your one adjacent to the interstate would be. Even though your FFE, the other one's higher. So deeper into the site, but higher
Yeah, it's,
elevation if they're both 35-foot buildings. It's only 2 feet.
But I think the distance from the beginning of the grading to the property line, and keep in mind, there's a lot of trees, like the property line that basically goes tangent to the west at the south side. There's another lot between us and the highway there. So you have another, I believe it's 7 acres. Yeah, it's undevelopable. So it's that'll remain wooded as well. So.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? I'm perusing through my plan.
I have a question for Ryan. Joe, I'm sorry.
Yeah. He's not going to live that one down tomorrow.
That's the nicest thing anybody said to me today, Mr. Turner.
So Joe, concerning the conversation with the slope, 3-to-1,
Yeah, I think me and Mr. Barlow just talked. I think what we discussed was 3-to-1 on the mass grading, open to evaluation of the retaining wall, and a 2.5-to-1 slope with final site plans.
so will that impact the buffer between this slope and the interstate?
No, so Mr. Barlow pointed out there is an access easement there to currently serve the billboard. We're working with the current property owner to see. Right now, they either access from Hollister or there's a old cow trail that comes back out to Volunteer. Likely it'll be the access to Volunteer, so we'll have to keep that open so to and from the billboard.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm trying to get to be able to answer your question on just the south right there, but I got to be honest with you, your monolithic side of the east of the building.
The south side shows a long side, but 40 runs directly east and west right there. The south side of that large building is actually a short side, right?
Yeah.
So
The building located nearest the interstate is on A2.1. There's,
yeah, so
so it'd be the south elevation here in the middle.
So
Is
oh,
that
yeah.
A2.1?
This says
It's
south.
A2.1. Are you on that sheet, A2.1?
It's probably throwing us off because the south elevation looks bigger than the east and the
Okay.
west
South
elevation.
here, it's bigger than so.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're looking at the wrong. There's two A2.1, so it's like the last sheet in the set.
Okay.
That's what's confusing.
Oh. So we've got two. 2.1.
Two of the same number. Yeah, it's the last
Okay.
sheet in the set.
Okay.
That will make more sense to
All
you.
right, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's on lot 8?
Hollister.
It's Hollister.
Hollister, I think the facility is that 200,000 or 150,000? It's a large facility. And the truck court is what, if you're looking at the broad side of that building, the back side, it essentially faces the truck court. And then there's it's been there a while, so a lot of the tree growth along the highway has a lot of mature growth. And we're not planning on touching any of that. It's all property anyway, so it has better visual shielding from the top.
All right, further thoughts, questions, comments? We got a long agenda tonight. I don't want to continue to dwell. Please, Commissioner Rash.
This new A2.1, the south elevation is much more pleasing than what we were looking at before. And I think it'd be a whole lot easier to accept something like this.
Further questions or comments? Let's go ahead and call for citizen comments in regards to this item on our agenda. Jill, do you know if we have any citizen comments on this one? Okay. Seeing no citizen comments this time, I'd like to ask for a motion in regards to this item on the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve with staff comments concerning the slope, as well as Chairman Winchester's comments concerning the south elevation of the 80,000 square foot building.
And add that to the 7078, or as denoted on the plan.
And add that to 778 as denoted on the plan of the paint color legend.
We capture everything on that? Mr. Barlow?
And that they'll work with staff on Chairman Winchester's comments on the facade.
I will second that comment to bring it up. Are we good? Do we capture everything? Very well. Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? So approved. Sir.
Thanks.
Next item up falls underneath a final plat. That would be item 7.1, review the final plat for Nichols Vale Phase 8, located at Tenney Park Lane. Ms. Hamlin?
Thank you. If you remember, we saw this back in July, and you guys made the condition that they leave off the lots there in the cul-de-sac until a compromise or decision has been agreed upon by anybody with an interest in the easement there that sort of dissects the cul-de-sac here. I don't believe an agreement has been made at this point, so the developer is just trying to do the best they can to work around the easement and just leave it in place. I think they've done a pretty good job with that. I think they've lost 3 lots out of it in the cul-de-sac. Their attorney has been working with Charles and Gino, and I think we're comfortable moving forward, and we request a curb cut there. I'll show you a curb cut here to allow access through that easement. So whoever would utilize that wouldn't have to jump a curb to use that. And the last thing that I have an issue with, a slight issue, I think Ryan thinks that he can address it very easily, is that minimum building setback line along 627 there against that easement. I think they need to pull that off a little bit. The side setbacks are 5 feet, so I'd be okay with 5 feet off that easement. I do have a slight concern also about that easement being included in the actual lot. I'll let Charles speak to that if there's any legal issues going forward for that future homeowner and the easement there.
You're referencing the homeowner at 627 and the easement? Is that what?
Yes, sir.
No, I mean, there's no issue. It's a
Okay.
access easement, so they'd have to, respect the building that's there.
Okay. And the last comment that I wanted to add is they need to revise note 1 to reflect 14 lots instead of 12.
So this is going to go back to my question that we had on this last time. If this person that owns this access easement gets mad, can they park their tractor with the trailer attached to it across that road and leave it parked right there and block these people's access?
I will let our attorney answer that question.
Mr. Michaels?
This is a public street, correct?
It's
Or
a
is it
public
private?
street. It's a public street that contains this little sliver of an easement.
Right. If they park their tractor there, then somebody would call the police and have their tractor towed away and stored, and then they could pay a fee to get it out.
So even though they have that access easement, it's technically their property or their easement, they can't, there's no way
Yeah,
that
the
they could,
purpose of the easement is for access, not to,
not parking
right,
or storage.
exactly.
Okay.
I also wanted just a note for the record. I have tried to reach out to Mr. Poindexter, the patents attorney, several times to see if any solutions have been made, and I've never gotten a call back. So I just want that on record that I have tried a couple times to get a hold of Mr. Poindexter.
There's no, Mr. Michaels, let me come back to you. There's no way to legally notify the potential owners of 625, 626, 627 that this easement is there, that buyer beware kind of a thing, is there?
Yeah, as a matter of law, they are deemed aware of the easement by way of the recorded subdivision plat once it's
Very well.
once
You're
it's recorded.
Wish people would read legal descriptions more often when they
I
buy
wish
property.
people would request their final plats every time they buy a house.
Yeah.
Never happens.
Yeah. And legal descriptions. So,
Yes.
yeah, both great. Commissioner Turner?
Ms. Hamlin, on page 1 of the letter that you gave to us, the last paragraph, it talks about lots 625 and through 631. I've been looking on my plat for phase 8, and I have not seen lot 631. Am I blind?
Right. we referenced the previously numbered lots 625, 626, 627, 631 that we saw back in July. Yes, sir.
I can sleep now, thank you.
Further questions or comments from the commission? Commissioner Law?
Your comment about making those three aware, can we do something to have them attach something to make sure in the, maybe it's the sales information on these, specifically on 627, to make sure that this owner is aware, because we know that people don't look at their final plats, but most people don't know that they're supposed to look at their final plats. And the builder is certainly not going to, in my experience, not going to make them aware. So is there anything we can do?
It's hard to say that 3% of $400,000 is going to incentivize you to communicate that very well as well.
I actually
Exactly.
think that I have a solution. For one of the last projects on our agenda, I've asked for a development board be placed. It looks like they might have some open space here. Maybe they could do something similar and post a copy of the final plat as a development board, maybe here in this open space area. That way, at least we know we've gone the extra mile. That might be an option. I don't know. We would have no way to police if they actually showed them the final plat, but at least we know that there's a development board out there with the final plat on there. So it's pretty obvious that it's clearly labeled an easement through there.
How about a sign right there at the curb cuts that says access easement?
Any kind of notification I think that we could provide is going the extra mile for these future homeowners.
That right, that doesn't take it.
Should it also be included in the seller's disclosure?
Charles.
Real quick, notification on the site, in my opinion, is much better than any kind of placing it in the disclosures or anything like that, because then say somebody forgets to do it, now you've created a dispute between the homeowner and the builder over something that may or may not be an issue, but now it's an issue as opposed to, it's just out there on a sign and everybody clearly should have been able to see it.
Good.
I agree with the sign that they're posted.
Yeah, because once the owners of 624 and 32 know that there's an easement there, they're going to make sure that people, if they move in first, they're going to be like, hey, there's people can come right through your property right there. So.
Further questions or comments? That being said, this time I'd like to take citizen comments in regards to this item on the agenda.
Good evening, Ryan Lovelace, Civil Site Design Group. Appreciate everybody working with us and appreciate staff working with us on this item. This is something that we wish wasn't here. We've tried to remove the easement. We've worked really diligently in the last 6 months, and like you said, we've had a hard time working it out. So we're going to work around it. The purpose of this plat is to change the lots. We lost 3 or 4 lots here, so it's a condition which wouldn't happen, but it is. So we've lost quite a few lots. We're going to have on those 2 curbs, we'll work with staff on this. Those 2 curbs will lay back, maybe even a driveway ramp. We'll work with staff to figure that out, but it'll be obvious that there is a access easement here to cross through with these driveway ramps. The sign needs to come up. We'll put a sign up. Love for it to be more temporary than permanent. Maybe it gets removed when we release the bonds. My only fear is that if it says access easement, then everybody in Nicholsville will use that access easement. Right now, I don't think there's much use of it at all. So that's the only thing I would think about if I'm in your shoes about putting a sign up in a more permanent stance, because everybody's going to use that access easement. So maybe we just do it temporary until the bonds get released, and then we remove the sign, if that's okay. But otherwise, we're okay with everything and ask for your approval. Thank you.
I just wanted to say I tend to agree with Ryan on that. My fear, even allowing the curb cut, which is necessary, is we'd never want to promote everybody parking, using that to park on, whether it be in the middle of the street or in the middle of that yard or the open space. So I do agree that it should be maybe a temporary. That's why I think just a copy of the final plat on a big board, like those typical development boards. I don't know if you remember the one we required over in Providence. Thank you.
Good point. Further questions, comments? This time, looking for a motion in regards to this item on our agenda.
Make a motion to approve with staff comments.
It's a motion for approval with staff comments, and staff comments do include the development board and the curb cut ramp. So we capture all that very well. Second your motion. That's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? So approved. Next item on the agenda falls underneath the preliminary plat. This item 8.1 is to review the preliminary plat for Legacy Point at Golden Bear, located at Golden Bear Gateway. Ms. Hamlin.
Thank you. This plat is in anticipation of a future multi-use development. If you guys remember, Legacy Farms came in several months ago for a rezone. This preliminary plat divides 84.76 acres into 12 lots. I've noted on here several off-site road improvements that they have committed to as each site develops, and staff recommends approval with any conditions listed. Thank you.
On the engineering side for this one, we have worked at length, I would say, with the engineer and their traffic engineer on this project. Obviously, this is a preliminary plat, so none of these are hard and fast requirements, especially day one type things, but a lot of these are going to be shifted on. These comments basically are the basic comments that you'll see as this development moves forward into specific site plans as we go in here. I think the biggest consideration that we looked at here was the access points that they have to Golden Bear Gateway. If you may recall, we did have the PUD that was, I'm not sure the name of it, it's Beckwith something, I'm sure, but they were actually going to build a full access on Golden Bear Gateway. This is actually establishing that access point. It's a very close proximity to where they were going to have their signalized intersection. So this is cohesive with the previous PUD for that. It's also reconnecting Rutland Drive. However, that will be a right in, right out access. We're having them construct that in such a place that there's a median in front there to try to restrict any left turns there. In the future, Beckwith Road access there would also be a right in, right out once they have some better access to Golden Bear. So that's on the opposite side. But here, these are the basic comments that we had as we went through the traffic study. I think one of the biggest things to consider as you look at this plan is the internal roadway network itself. They are establishing a pretty good roadway infrastructure plan with this on sheet C1. You see the typical sections there. The main entry road is a nice boulevard type section, collector road, substantial collector roadway there. 2 lanes each direction. I would say this would be something that you see similar Maryland Way, Virginia Way, and Maryland Farms, another Century Plaza over there in Donaldson, some other similar type developments that you see in a lot of other places where you have a median divided roadway. It's very common as you come into the site. So it functions well internally, we believe. Of course, we will be looking at these as the site plans come along. So that's the long and short of it from the transportation side.
Quick question for you, Andy.
Mm-hmm.
On the right in, right out on Rutland to Golden Bear right there, that's Golden Bear is not considered state highway, so we get to dictate that right in, right out, right? Not the state.
That is correct. Yes.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
really close to the interchange? The interchange itself?
Yes, and that's a good point, Dave.
It's hard,
The-
hard to see where that entrance is.
It is, I believe, I don't remember the measurements. Matt, do you recall the distance to the ramp? It's a decent distance away from the ramp. One of the big things that I know we've worked at on some of the interchanges in the past, particularly working with TDOT on Central Pike Interchange, their consideration that they really want to see is no full access within a specific range. We're meeting that with the full access here. We're allowing the right in, right out as sort of a partial access. I think we're doing something similar, or we did something similar with Providence Central and their access there just south of there. So we're okay with the right in, right out. We definitely do not want any left turns at that location.
Okay.
Commissioner Turner?
Mr. Barlow, thank you for putting this plan out. This is an exciting plan because it's right there at the heart of the interchange. And so as this plan continues to build and grow out, will there be additional traffic studies to, we have no idea really what's going to be coming here. So
yeah,
are those part of the approval process for each of the plats?
Yes, that's a great question. Yeah. And so what we looked at was sort of a generic type of traffic generators. We're anticipating some office, likely a hotel. There will be some commercial components to this as well. You probably have some sort of a drive-through, maybe a convenience market or something like that. We anticipated all those types of things. And one of the things that we wanted to look at is each one, comment number 2, each site plan submitted shall provide an updated study. We want to look at those for the merits. We probably are not going to be looking at anything substantially different until you got a little bit further on into the development. That's when we're going to have an idea of, okay, where are we tracking? Are we tracking above or below what we originally looked at? Do we need to be looking at anything in addition to what we have here on the sheet? Fully expect that we're going to have some additional stuff as time goes on, but I don't expect anything major. I think all the major stuff we try to capture right here.
What is lot 12? That's just a huge lot and it's not subdivided or anything. What's the plan for that?
Lot 12, I believe, is the next phase of the development. I may let the engineer representing the project speak a little bit more to that. My review of this is that it would be further subdivided as part of the next phase.
Okay, thank you.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, if we have representation that would like to speak towards this, you're welcome to. If not, we're going to go ahead and open up to citizen comments in regards to this item on the agenda.
I mean, I would like to speak to you all, but if you don't have questions, I won't. You've got a lot on your agenda tonight.
Thank you. See no questions or comments, seeing no citizen comments at this time, I'd like to ask for a motion in regards to this item on our agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve with all the staff comments.
It's a motion. Second by Commissioner Cersey. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? So approved. Would it be, Ms. Hamlin, would it be acceptable to hear FMDP and preliminary plat together, or should we keep them
Please.
separate?
Please do.
Wonderful. Thank you. Would there be any objection from the commission to hearing 9.1 and 9.2 together? Seeing no objection to that, we will, our next items on the agenda, which we'll be hearing together, both fall underneath FMDP and preliminary plat. It's item 9.1, which is to review the final master development plan for Bradshaw Farms, Phase 2, located on Vanner Road. And item 9.2, to review the preliminary plat for Bradshaw Farms, Phase 2, located on Vanner Road. We are hearing 9.1 and 9.2 together, just for a clarification. Ms. Hamlin.
Thank you. We actually had this one on the consent agenda originally, but there were so many comments about the raised crosswalk locations. We pulled it off. I thought Mr. Barlow would like to discuss that further with you guys. This final master development plan and preliminary plat are in keeping with the preliminary master development plan that was approved. It will create 15 single-family lots, the carriage style, if you remember from their pattern book, and 112 age-restricted villas and cottages on roughly 58.76 acres. Included also is 32.75 acres of open space. You'll see that open space in a separate site plan, but we would like to see the boardwalk widths and locations shown on the preliminary plat as they move forward. So I'd like to add that as a condition. I think it's already listed, but if not, include it, please. Other than that, staff recommends approval with our conditions. And I'll let Mr. Barlow take the mic because I feel like you might have some questions for him.
Thank you, Jennifer. I did want to point out, I think one of the additional information that you were given tonight on this is related to the traffic calming elements within Jackson Hills itself. We did approve with phase 1 FMDP and preliminary plat a raised crosswalk at a location. Handout that was provided there shows that location, the approved location, very well. Speaking a lot with Jackson Gallagher, who's been representing the residents for Jackson Hills. Met with him along with Mr. Jerry Marson out there as well to review the location. Shane and I went and met with him back in December, I guess end of December. And so talking through this, I know one of the concerns is you have a crosswalk there. Today it's unmarked. Of course, the final pavement's not down yet, but that is going to be a 3-lane facility with a center turn lane. So you have lane each way, you've got bike lanes, and you have a center turn lane there. You have 2 accesses as well to the amenity center. And one of the big concerns is that is a very highly traveled crosswalk for a lot of residents in the neighborhood. And so it's a logical points and logical places for where people were going to be walking was a big concern there. We had the location a little bit farther to the west purely for drainage reasons. We understand the most logical location is going to be further to the east, closer to the original crosswalk. So speaking with Jackson on that, I know the concern wasn't necessarily the raised crosswalk. The concern was more so increasing safety there. And so talking with them, I spoke as well with the representatives from Goodall Homes, their engineer as well, and talked about the idea of a pedestrian refuge island. Basically, let's remove the center turn lane right there in that area and create a refuge island. It's a low growth landscaping. You can have it on either side. It's hard concrete, non-mountable curbs in there in the middle of the road. Create a little bit of a shy line. People want to stay away from that area if they're driving through there. It may not slow traffic down as much as a raised crosswalk or a speed hump or something like that. However, it is going to greatly reduce the crosswalk distance. Creates a refuge in the middle of the road. You don't have to be looking both ways at one time. You can just look one way, get to the center of the road, look the other way, make the crossing. So safety is number one. Safety's top priority here. And so speaking with them, we are in agreement with this alternate design, understanding that there could be some cost differentials there. I know that Jackson has requested the flashing signs. You see an example on one of the screenshots that he did provide in his letter. And we are in agreement with that as well. Those do have some expense to them. We understand that. In addition to any additional cost, obviously, the way the PUD's written, that would come out of the per lot contribution that Goodall is providing to the city. So we understand that, we accept that, and we are in agreement with that. Additionally, one thing that Jackson did bring up was traffic calming on Sire Avenue that could come out of that pot of funding as well. And we are also, obviously, in our staff, we're full agreement with traffic calming measures within neighborhoods. We've identified some locations there as well. We did want to check. We have it on schedule to check and see what the speeds are out there today. We want to see what the actual field measured data is showing us. We don't want to just go just based on feedback. We want to make sure that, okay, we see what the actual real numbers are. Let's go off the data. Even if it didn't show that it was that bad, we could still work something out where we could have some calming measures or some implementations there to try to help reduce the speed. So we're in agreement with those. We just ask that those items be continued to be worked out with our staff, with Goodall, and with Jackson Hills residents as we move through the process. We wanted to catch this here with phase 2. It's probably be a little while before you see phase 3. So we wanted to make sure and try to get some of these measures rolled in before we get too far down the line. Yes, sir.
Mr. Barlow, thank you for your comments on that and for addressing the citizen comments. I have 2 questions. One is concerning the pedestrian refuge island and then also the flashing lights. Can you describe to us a little bit more about how that works? One of the questions I have with the refuge island is, so if you have a small child that's kind of hiding in the refuge island and then kind of darts out, that could be problematic for drivers. With that, how does the blinking lights work? Is it something that like a pedestrian will push as they go across so that there'll be a certain second delay while they get across?
Yeah, that's a great questions there. And yes, from a driver expectation perspective, I highly recommend only having them flash when they've been pushed, when the button's been pushed. If it's flashing all the time, driver expectation is they just see the lights, they get numb to it. You want to train the drivers to see only when the flashing lights, I look over and I see a child over there, or I see a family going over to go to the amenity center. So from an expectation standpoint, absolutely, I don't want that a permanent flashing sign. I want it to be pedestrian push button actuated. Yes, that's a maintenance and it's an extra cost for installation, but it is something I think from a safety perspective, absolutely. And to your other question on the creating sort of a spot where somebody could hide, that was part of, I think that is a very valid concern. That's why we don't want to have any kind of landscaping there that's going to be 2-3 feet tall. I think if you have anything, your curb is 6 inches tall. And so it's not really all that tall. What I would say there is you could do grass, you could do, ground cover, anything like that. Just, I'm not a landscape architect, but just, go with your standard, maybe 6 inches or shorter ground cover, things like that. It can provide a little bit of, possible amenity or things, things where you could, feel a little bit more comfortable crossing there, but then it's not growing up so tall that you're blocking the view of anybody.
I agree with both of those. Thank you.
Yeah.
Please.
Mr. Gallagher reached out to me as well. And there is a growing concern of traffic, and that's only going to get worse as houses begin to get built out there. So thank you, Mr. Barlow, for meeting with Jackson. Appreciate it. So
certainly.
Please.
I know you and I have had some discussion on traffic calming in Willoughby Station. Is it going to be the similar type? Because my feeling is living on what's probably the equivalent of Sire in Willoughby Station on Melbourne Terrace, that type of traffic calming does very little to slow speeds. Actually, I think we're talking to PD, people actually, it's smoother to go faster. So 35 to 40 is not uncommon where we are. And I happen to live right in front of one of those. So is that going to be the same pitch, same size, same type, or?
Yeah, it would be the same as what we have there on Melbourne. I will say we did measure some data on, it was Trail Ridge Circle as well as Woodridge Place, both roads. We did do speed humps out there. We did see a pretty sizable decrease.
Now, I will say in Woodridge, they feel totally different. I don't know why, if they're size different, and I think Matt, you live out there too, and Willoughby, so I drive over them every day, but when I go to Woodridge, you feel it in your car. And Willoughby, it's just kind of like, it's a little bump in the road.
We might could do some investigation to make sure, see if there's any difference in the height of the two. Could be something we need to review.
Do we have a code standard for this?
We have, I won't say that we have a set detail that we have. We've been using a standard design of 3 inches tall, 12 inches or 12 feet as you drive across them. So 3 inches tall, 12 feet long. That's our standard that we've installed everywhere for the speed humps. We've not varied from that. Now, installation, they're getting installed. It's asphalt. It's not something that's an exact science either. So it could be 2.5 inches in one place, and it could be 3.5 in another potentially.
Yeah, and I know we talked about some of the, I don't even know what to call them, the plastic piece ones. They use them out in Green Hills a lot. And, your car gets punished if you don't slow down, which, it should. If you're going across going through a 25 at 45 or 50, you ought to feel it.
Yeah.
So, but I know you said those are considerably more expensive as well.
They were. We priced those out when we started doing this, and we can place a speed hump for probably $4,000 or $5,000 a piece, and those are going to be upwards of $20,000 a piece. So I didn't feel like it was worth the investment on that.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that you're probably right, it is going to be a little bit more abrupt.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Further questions, comments? This time, let's go ahead and open up for citizen comments in regards to 9.1 or 9.2. Both are final master development plan and preliminary plat, both for Bradshaw Farms Phase 2. So we will open up for citizen comments. For Bradshaw, please.
Okay.
Name and address for the record.
Jake Vincent with Reagan Smith, 315 Woodland Street, Nashville. Here to answer any questions you may have and hopefully get an approval.
Very well. Thank you. Questions, comments? Thank you guys for being here. Any more citizen comments? We okay? For the record, we did mention earlier about all of the commissioners having or being presented with emails. So far, it appears that both our city commissioner, which represents this district, and also a member of our planning commission as well as the board designated representative, being here tonight is a great thing when it's in your district. And as well, I did not get a count on these, probably 20 emails, somewhere in that neighborhood of 20 emails in regards to this item on our agenda. I think all items were from Jackson Hills residents, as I gather it. I was speed reading, so my apologies if I've messed any of that up. It does appear that that Mr. Gallagher is very proactive and very detailed, I must say, in regards to the information that he's provided us. And then I think almost all of the emails supported Mr. Gallagher and what he said, outside of, I think, one of them was against traffic calming as well out there. And then there was a couple that made comments that I heard addressed in the emails, or a couple comments addressed in the emails that I believe staff addressed tonight. And that was in regards to secondary roads outside of just this main intersection. So my encouragement as a planning commissioner sitting here on an appointed board, but with two elected officials on here, with things such as the traffic calming, should it affect your neighborhood, please reach out to them. They're compassionate, caring, accessible. And so just want to make sure that we have on record that all of us saw a very well presented and nice package of emails. And so those were 20 comments that did not come before us where we heard them, but we heard you. So I just wanted to make that statement there real quick. With that being said, I'm looking for a motion in regards to items 9.1 and 9.2 on the agenda.
So moved with the staff recommendation.
It's a motion. I think Commissioner Floyd beat you on that. All right. I'm going to give it to you. We're going to get you on record. I've got a motion and a second, subject to staff comments on 9.1 and 9.2. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? It's so approved. The next item on our agenda is item 10.1. It is review the site plan for Sellers Station Phase 2 located at North Mount Juliet Road. Ms. Hamilton.
Thank you. As you stated, this is a site plan for 2 buildings. One will house a future Dunkin' Donuts and one will be available for retail, restaurant, professional office space. They have provided the grease trap locations and outdoor seating to support a future restaurant in that second building location. This is a busy site plan, but I think it works. I'll let Andy talk about traffic flow, or Matt or Shane, around the site. I put in the staff report, which I don't know what I was thinking when I typed short instead of more, but they have plenty of parking. They have 95 spaces where 88 is required. I think the biggest concern as far as planning is concerned is the elevations. Those rear elevations in the back with the Hardy, as you can see on sheet A3.2. I don't necessarily have a problem with the Hardy across the Dunkin' Donut building there to make their sign pop, and it's visually pleasing, but these Hardy parapet walls on the back of building 3, I feel like needs to be brick all the way to the top. I'd also like to see one continuous parapet wall rather than the broken. I know they're trying to compensate for some drainage back there, but I'm hoping that there's an alternative. That's just not visually pleasing in my opinion. Other than those couple of things, I believe, yes, I did actually have 2 more conditions to add. I'd like to add condition number 11, provide the total ISR for phase 1 and 2. Just so we can have that on record. I spoke to Andy and he reminded me that they did do compensate for their stormwater with 1 detention pond in the rear, and I had forgotten that. So ISR should probably not be an issue, but I'd still like to have that in that site data table for future reference. And I wanted to add that all rooftop mounted equipment should be screened from horizontal view. We have requested also, since that drive aisle goes behind the building there, to provide screening for any utility boxes or any kind of utility equipment there in the rear of those buildings. Do you guys have any questions? I know this is a really busy site plan, so if you want to take a second to...
I got a lot, but not for you.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Please.
That exit is showing north and southbound. Can this be reconfigured to show a right turn only coming out of that exit?
I'd love for it to. I believe we've asked for that in the beginning with the applicant, and I think Mark is here and he can address that if you like.
Okay.
My name is Mark Kovchinsky. I'm the civil designer for the project, civil engineer. That entrance is existing entrance, and it's relatively small. It's only we're showing it. We've been asked to show it only as an exit. So we really don't have enough room to make a big enough island for the right turn right out to be effective. So we would request that we keep it just the skinny driveway that it is.
I think what Mr. Hefner
Yeah.
is recommending is maybe shortening that up and just kind of encourage traffic to go this way.
That's correct.
Instead of making an island, constructing an island, maybe just shorten up that existing, I think that's what he's asking for.
I'm good with not even making it an entrance, making it a right out.
That's what I'm.
That's what he's
That's what I'm. That's what I'm.
Not a
recommend-
right in, right out, just a right out. It's not
That's
even
it.
an entrance to your neighbor. I
That's
mean,
that's what I'm.
No
I think
way
the
to get
biggest
in.
concern too is you've got your customers coming out here, and then also right across the street is the access to the funeral home, and that just provides a conflict with that island here in the middle of Mount Juliet Road.
I think the access to the funeral home's more aligned with this one.
I think Andy looked it up on GIS earlier.
Mm.
That access is actually closer to the
Closer.
red building. I know that because every time there's a funeral, our police department gets a complaint when we block traffic for people.
I know
coming
I
out
can
right
already
here.
say that with just that much movement and this much with this little, that if that is not a right out, that there's no way that I'd even need to ask any more questions about it because my decision's made.
Okay, we'll make it right out.
I mean, I'm that adamant. This is just, that's a lot on this site. And to be quite honest with you, as I sit here tonight, I feel like I've been duped a little bit. And I don't make that statement lightly, but I make that statement in regards to what was presented to this body on this Christmas place across here. And I understand that that's going to be attraction and a pivotal point for our community, but trying to cram in what's being crammed in here tonight, I think is disrespectful to put before us. I really do. I think it's way too much in that small of a site. And we have to, because I would have changed the parking configuration knowing this was going to happen on what we did on Christmas site, because to me, this makes that site not the attraction that it once was for us. I really do. And I know that doesn't, you do, and Mark, you're a good friend, a good person. You sat on this body. But this is a lot in a very small space. And they're asking for heavy, we know that this Christmas place is going to generate heavy traffic. And then you're potentially throwing a heavy traffic tenant at us as well during peak traffic times. And then saying, hey, let's put 6 more tenants in these 2 buildings. That's a lot. That's a lot on a small site. And I applaud the way that you've designed it, because you've designed it really well. But sometimes it's just too much. And this one right here just screams at me as one that's been too much. As I said, I can't get any further past any conversation or questions with just that south entrance out there. And I do applaud you, because you've done a great job from your engineering standpoint on this, being asked to put a lot on a little. But I do feel,
I have no idea what the previous baggage that the site carries and what was promised to the planning commission about the density of the development on the site.
Yeah.
From a technical aspect, from engineering aspect, this project meets all of the standards that the city has placed for density on a site. It meets the parking requirements. It meets the building area requirements. It meets the impervious surface area requirements. So this is a level of density that is supported by your ordinances.
Yeah. I know. And you've done a great job designing. I mean, you really have. And so I don't mean it like that, but just the way that the adjacent project I felt was going to build out.
Well,
I didn't realize that this was going to be capable, the southern property was going to be capable of doing something like we have laid out here. But I didn't catch that one. Then maybe that's my bad on that. But
the hope,
just the way the other one was, and it doesn't have anything to do with you on this one, but it has to do with the way the other one was presented back to us.
Yeah, the Christmas for All people are very supportive of Mr. Sellers providing other types of destinations on the exact same property to be complementary to their development.
Yeah.
So they're excited about having the Dunkin' Donuts there. Judd has entertained an ice cream shop, another ice cream shop. So there's a lot of interest from tenants to be in relationship to the Christmas for All facility that this project is speaking to.
There's a lot going on. Please, Commissioner Long.
So
Sorry.
with the Dunkin' Donuts, I see there's five queues for the drive-through.
Uh-huh.
So I love coffee almost as much as Art Giles, I think. And I spend a lot of time at Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks. And to me, as a consumer, this looks like a disaster for a drive-through. So you have, most of the cars are probably going to come around now that you've got, it's an only right out. So if you're going to go north, you're going to go back around this building. And, if you're at Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks any day of the week, there's 15 cars in line. And the one on the north is a disaster because you basically, you landlock everybody by the cars that are coming and going. So nobody can go anywhere. So if you've got 5 or 6, let's say you got 5 cars there. Well, if you get 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 cars, which is very, very likely at Dunkin' Donuts, and those people come back around. So now you've got dumpsters there and you've got cars and people don't stay up against the line or against the building. So now you've got people coming out of the drive-through that actually can't get out to go back around the building to get out to go north, since you've only got a right turn now. So,
Well,
which I don't think a left turn made sense there anyway, because now, that's a horrible place to be. And the traffic, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's backed up, an 1/8 of a mile past there anyway.
Yeah,
So-
the by far the most dominant motion out of the Dunkin' Donuts will be the right turn motion. Their vast majority of their business is in the AM hours. That's why they're specifically on this side of the road.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I also say that, Starbucks is on the wrong side of the road for the morning commute for a lot of people, but they cross over anyway, and it's become a kind of a disaster up there too, trying to turn in. And this lot actually looks smaller than what Starbucks has with parking on the back. So I mean, to me, I probably would end up, I love Dunkin' Donuts, but I'd probably end up driving by it anyway. But it just looks like a really tough design for.
I understand your concern.
It actually reminds me a lot like Starbucks on the north side. If you've ever been through that drive-through, it's a mess to try to get out onto Lebanon Road. Everything is just jam-packed in there, and this looks a lot like that. You're having to come down, make a right, and then come back and make a left. To me, it just looks like there's a lot going on.
I understand your concern. Dunkin' Donuts has looked at this design and they have approved it
Mark,
or accepted it.
if we made that south entrance to a right only, and I do want to go back northbound on Mount Juliet Road, so if I came through the drive-through, I'm going to have to go left. Right now, the plan indicates a one-way only on the south side of that island that holds your sanitary sewer pump and looks like a transformer pad right there.
Yes.
Would you have enough room in that drive aisle for two-way traffic?
Yes, it's
just
24,
painted
it's
one?
25 foot wide.
Oh, yeah, it looked like it was probably wide enough, just striping.
Yes. Well, when we first met with technical review, they were the ones that tried to impose on us, or wanted to impose on us a one-way
Sure.
motion going that way, and then the turn out of the facility there. Or de-emphasize that as a two-way route.
You're right, and that's part of my struggle is that it does meet all of our ordinances.
I also wanted to add that this was actually on the November Planning Commission meeting.
Yeah.
And it had 3 buildings shown on it. Some of those buildings and the associated parking was located within the railroad right of way. So we didn't feel like it was ready to go to you guys. So I just wanted to make sure you all knew that we have worked so hard on this to make it work and to make it the best that it can be, to get to where it is right now. Mark has done a fantastic job of working with us. So I wanted to make sure that was noted tonight. Sure.
So to that point, this project originally did have an incursion into the railroad's right of way. We showed some more parking and some more travel space for the tour buses that are expected at the Christmas for All, and it did anticipate another building. And I believe that the property owner still will pursue that. We had a meeting today with Nashville Eastern Railroad Authority, the executive board, and they authorized R.J. Gorman to enter into a lease agreement with the property owner to lease that property on the right of way for the property owner to use for parking and his dumpster pad and all the other site furniture that we could propose there. So this was sort of a plan B. He may change his mind now that we've had this discussion, but his intent before this meeting was to get approval for this plan and then come back with a revised site plan showing the fourth building. So
I would not be excited. And know him personally.
It would be a repeat of the building 3. And would go where those that bank of parking spots is. That was the first submittal that we made back in October.
In saying that, Mark, how could you accommodate your required parking if you added that third building?
Well, as Jennifer said, the site is significantly overparked at the moment, has significantly more parking spots than needed. The agreement with the railroad would add another 13 spots to the site, specifically behind what is now the red building. The property owner, Judd Sellers, and Kenny Martin are working very diligently with Charlie Daniels Estate to turn the red building into a museum space. And so the additional parking right behind that red building would be attractive to the museum space.
But you'd have to cross the railroad tracks.
No, the parking spots will be on our side of the railroad tracks. They would just be that long straight line that backs up to the property line right there. There would be just a row of parking spots there. It allows us to add about 13 more spots.
How would you get your tour buses around?
The original plan shows the route that the tour buses would take and where the parking would be for those. So, excuse me, it would work.
Would it be? It sounds like it might be very tight.
Sure. It would be tight.
Typically 45 feet long.
In length, tour bus?
I ran the turn
Prevo.
software on it and it supported it. Obviously, the dumpster bed would be pushed farther south. So the dumpster enclosure is out of the way and it gives you more space there for another 25 feet of pavement.
Imagine the enjoyment when Dunkin' Donuts food truck comes in and blocks that two-way drive aisle. That is exactly what's going to happen. 'Cause there's nowhere else for it to
I
go.
never envisioned when I first did the design on Sellers Park across the street that he would be able to have three restaurants in that building.
Yeah.
And somehow he's made that work. So I do have one or two points that I would ask for you all to consider. One of the comments on the list is that we have a landscape architect design the landscaping. This board in the past has accepted the architect of record, Mr. Manus, as the landscaping architect. He's sufficiently licensed in the state, according to the state rules, to practice architecture under his architecture license. So I would like you to accept him as the designer of the landscaping.
Still be reviewed and approved by staff though, right?
Correct.
Further questions or comments?
Did you have any more requests?
I guess I will speak to the hardy board on that small portion of the back parapets there. We can certainly put brick there. Our thought is that that doesn't face the right of way at all. It's difficult to see that. Will be very difficult to see that from the right of way. But we were just trying to get a little bit of variation in materials to try to make it a little more attractive on the backside. Just have a little variance in textures and stuff like that that you cannot really achieve from just using just brick. So we're hoping that you would allow that material in those small areas on that backside.
So I noticed on your design that you had some things from Charlie Daniels, portraits, some flags, Welcome to Mount Juliet signs, things like that. Is that something that you're planning on keeping, or is that just something that you just added to the pictures?
We would like to. That was all in the attempt to be supportive of the proposed use of the red building as a Charlie Daniels museum. So that's where that came from.
Mm-hmm.
We understand that that will be the parking lot that the people that come to the museum will use on that side. And we wanted to have a little visual appeal back there for those folks.
So they'll be using this parking lot here to access the museum also?
Correct.
So how does that fit into your parking requirements?
I've showed that the space in the red building, I've included that in the parking calculations as retail. So the thought is that if it was a retail use, that's a more intensive use than the museum would be. The museum's not going to be very big. It's only going to be 2,000 square feet. It's hard to envision a huge number of people there at any one time.
This has been very insightful.
So Mark, what waivers are you wanting on your design?
We've asked for the waiver for the hardy board and for the different materials on the front facade to support the Dunkin' Donut branding that they would like to ask for. And along the one side above the drive-through.
Can we make if we grant that, and Mr. Michaels, I hope you can hear me on this. So if we grant that design waiver, particularly for the Dunkin' Donuts for their branding, should that tenant not make, or that tenant changes, can we make it get back into compliance with our ordinance?
Yeah, I think we can make that a condition of the waiver, is that it is for, I believe it's a corporate motif type thing that we're granting. So, I mean, we can make that a condition.
Very well. Thank you. So the hardy on that design element. You okay with getting us the brick parapet walls on the back and taking all that back building needs to be brick or stone?
Yes.
Further questions or comments?
So if you come back and you add a third or fourth building, what we do tonight, will that be scrapped and then because you'll be a new submission? Is that what?
Jennifer may speak to this more. We had not considered this a new submission. We considered this a revision of the site plan that was previously approved because it's all on the same piece of property. So the next, if he comes back with the fourth building, it'll be another revision to the site plan, but I would assume that it would take the same course as this one has taken. I'm sure you will have review of it again.
Please do express our frustration.
I understand. I just spent some time and drove around while I was waiting for y'all. I spent some time and drove around the vintage property, and that's equally as dense.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, to some extent, and my personal opinion is
And
I
you know what
prefer
gets-
the density
And,
here.
and I don't disagree. You know what gets me on this one is really the railroad crossing. The railroad crossing and its complication for your ingress and egress. And so if this were sitting out and we had no conflicts, I'm probably not as heartburned on this one. But this one, with that tenant mix, that the way that the Christmas place came before this body, and then that proximity and accessibility on this site, that railroad cross is what just gives me the heartburn. It's just not safe for this much. And that's really what it boils down to. It's just safety. It's just that is a, to me, it's just screaming, let's make as much money as we can and let's not worry about the safety of people. And that is what that screams to me.
Yeah, I understand your point. Your point's well taken. I must admit to you that it was very difficult to get Mr. Sellers to give up his other exit from the property that was right next to the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
He has 3 curb cuts there now, and it was very difficult to get him to give up that one. So, if he didn't do anything there, you would still have an exit that's right at the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
Like it's almost underneath the arm of the railroad track crossing.
No crossing.
So, the work that we've been able to do with the railroad authority and has relieved us of that problem.
I agree with what Ms. Hamlin said.
If the railroad deal
It's making
goes
it
through, one of the requirements of the railroad is that a fence is erected between his property and the railroad.
That'd be
So
good.
that will be a nice addition along there. Where we're leasing the space. So 25 feet off the railroad tracks, there will be a new nice aluminum fence that goes east-west along the railroad property there and goes to the building and cuts off the building. Yes, sir.
And Mark, I'd also like to just express something for you to send back to the people that you work with, is that I've been to the Christmas place in Pigeon Forge many times, and I've spent a lot of money there. And we go.
Now, be honest, you or your wife?
We both go. I might be dragged along, but I'm still there. But we go every year. And so one of the attractions about this is the walkability, the pedestrian walkability of that location. And also the landscaping. You mentioned the landscaping, but just the accessibility, they have the caramel corn wagon that you can buy caramel corn. They have, places where you can get your picture made. And it's just a very walkable, and therefore you want to stay there longer. And this place here, this plot of land, if we could create that again, I think that'd be very attractive as a destination for tourists to come to our city and to stay a while. And, you know, they can go across the street and eat over at Jersey Mike's, get some ice cream and some things like that. But the walkability of that place in Pigeon Forge is the attraction too, because it makes people want to stay there. And if you could express that to Mr. Sellers and others, for us to create a concept like that here, I think it'll do multiple things for our city and for our visitors. They'll make them want to stay. It'll give them a good impression, and they won't feel crowded and constrained and confined, that they'll feel like that they can walk around safely and enjoy their time and spend their money here.
I don't disagree with you. I agree wholeheartedly with you. And yes, that is also Mr. Sellers' vision. His idea of a couple other of local artisan vendors or something like that in these retail spaces would create additional traffic there, or buzz for the people that are going in and out of the Christmas Village building, the outdoor cafes in there. He was very concerned about some of the requirements of the zoning ordinances that prohibit outside food sales. And so that was part of his impetus of providing additional retail space, is that he can have some of these, dessert vendors or food vendors in spaces.
So is that his reasoning for putting up brick and mortar buildings, is because of requirements on food vendors?
Part of it. Yes, part of it.
Just so you know, he could apply for a temporary event permit, and as long as he applied for that and got a transient vendor permit, he would be allowed to have the food trucks and food vendors for a temporary event. I believe he's allowed 8 per year. It could be a grand opening, Memorial Day, those types of sales.
Mm-hmm.
So that wouldn't be totally out of the question several times a year.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Christmas time and, yeah, big holidays, sure.
But that was certainly one of his considerations. He wanted to provide more places for people to spend time. And that's also sort of how he has been successful with his arguments at the railroad board, is that he's creating a destination here for the excursion train to come out, specifically the Christmas train to come out, stop here, people get off, they can go to the Christmas store, they can go to the Dunkin' Donuts or get coffee and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's all the idea of being walkable from the train station.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Please, Commissioner Rest.
Mark, I'll address you from behind.
Sure. Sure.
I do commend you on putting that 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. That's a great work of art there. The question is that again, that Southern Drive, I don't know if you've seen the right-in, right-outs that we have up at Publix up on Lebanon Road. Although it had a little island there, it rarely works as a right-in, right-out. People still pull in.
I agree.
And you can't stop that. My concern as well with Mr. Winchester is that, it's so close to that railroad. Has there been any thought to just not providing we'll call it an entrance or an exit at that location, and just utilizing that shared entrance further away from the railroad?
I attempted that argument. Dunkin' Donuts was very resistant to it.
Okay.
Further questions or comments? Great. Thank you, Mark. We really appreciate it. Yes, sir. At this time, let's call for citizen comments. Any citizens wishing to make comment, welcome and encouraged to do so. Let me know if we have any. Seeing no citizen comments at this time. I'd like to ask for a motion in regards to this item on the agenda. I've been tough on it, so I'll be nice on it. How about that? I'll make a motion for approval, subject to the south entrance being taken to a right out only. That is right out only. Not a right in, right out, just a right out only on that south entrance. The only variance on the design standards being on the east side of the building fronting Mount Juliet Road in order to accommodate its tenant. Should the tenant change or not fulfill that it goes back and meets our design standards as noted to be 100% brick and stone.
And that's for the Dunkin' Donuts building, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
South Drive, going west.
South Drive would be, yeah, and that South Drive to be corrected on the plan, it's showing one way of directional. That's a two-way drive access across the back. That's my motion.
Excuse me. Can
Please.
you make sure to include my additional comments to provide the total ISR for phase 1 and 2 and all rooftop mounted equipment shall be screened from horizontal view?
Including Mrs. Hamlin's comment for the record. Second still stand? It's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? So approved. All right. And I'm going to get those together. All right. Item 11.1 is to review the land use plan amendment for Wintry Pines located on Nonneville Road. And once again, it is the land use plan amendment only. Turn it over to Ms. Hamlin.
Thank you. I was just looking for Joe. So I wanted to go over, are you going to hear everything at once? I'm sorry, I was sidetracked. Are we just on the land use amendment?
Just land use.
Okay, awesome. Well, so the land use plan is being amended from low density residential to medium density residential, as well as a 6-acre portion from medium density residential to multifamily. Mr. Ely has created an exhibit, which is included in your staff report, to provide a little bit of visual aid for those areas that we're changing. Staff recommends approval. If you do make the change, could you add the condition that it would only be granted if the preliminary master development plan is approved by the BOC?
Absolutely. Questions or comments in regards to this item on the agenda, the land use plan amendment only? Seeing no comments at this time, I'd like to call for citizen comments in regards to this item on the agenda. Do we have any on this one? None? All right. With that being said, I am looking for a motion in regards to this item on the agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
Subject to, no, I'll second it, and subject to staff comments, which also includes that should the preliminary master development plan not pass, that it reverts back. Very well. I'll give you a second to that. That's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? It is approved. Next item on our agenda is it is actually a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners. It's item 11.2, to review the preliminary master development plan rezone for Wintry Pines located on Nonneville Road. Ms. Hamlin.
Thank you. This is one of the better plans I've seen for this property. So I really appreciate the developer and the engineers listening to our comments. I believe This has been in the works for about 3 years, maybe. It addresses connectivity. It addresses different size lots contained within a development, as well as a small portion of townhomes. The amenities for this project are on the heavy side, and I couldn't be more thrilled with what they've submitted to us. They have also included a trailhead and the associated restroom facility open to the public along the Greenway Trail in the back. They have listed 5 different lot sizes ranging from 6,500 square feet all the way up to 11,000 square feet. And like I said, 50 townhomes. The variance that they have asked for, that is on sheet 3 of my staff report. They're asking for a variance to the bulk standards to allow from 30 foot to 20 foot on the front setback and 20 foot to 6 foot side setbacks. They're also asking for the minimum lot width from 100 to 50. And that would be the minimum lot width at the building line, not the actual road frontage requirement. I didn't want you guys to get confused on that. This is in correlation with variance request number 4. Lots along Collector Street should be allowed individual driveway access. I think staff could get on board with that as long as those lots remain 100 feet wide at the building line. They've also asked to request a perimeter, to omit the perimeter fence around the multi-family area, and staff certainly supports that, as that would make it more inclusive for that townhome development, as they will be utilizing all of the amenities provided for the development, and that tends to look institutional in the middle of that development, in my opinion. They've also requested to allow a 40% lot coverage for all lots, and staff supports that. Just for reference, 25% is the max for a straight zoned development. Staff also supports the 95% primary facade materials on the front and side. My staff report indicates that it's only for the front and the side, but the actual request is for all 4 sides, which staff does support. That would only have a secondary material for 5% on each facade, and that would just basically be accents, which we already allow. I'll let Andy go over the off-site road improvements and the connectivity contained within the development. Just want to make sure that I've covered everything with you guys. We've asked that they comply with the multifamily design guidelines. However, we did, like I said, support that variance for the perimeter fence. The mail kiosks, we requested that they provide additional parking for those locations. You will notice the perpendicular parking for the mail kiosk between the 2nd and 3rd roundabout. We've asked that they provide a parallel parking for those locations to prevent backing onto that access street. I've also requested there in the right-of-way at Sports Road, 2 parallel spaces be provided to allow parking for access to the playground. Should somebody over near lot 145 along that greenway in the creek want to come play on this playground, you might have a mother with several children that doesn't feel like walking and lugging them all that way. So I think that would be an added benefit to the development. So there are several milk kiosks scattered throughout this development, and we've asked that they provide parking for those, and we prefer parallel spaces in those locations. And much like we discussed this earlier this evening, we've asked that they provide a development board at the front of the neighborhood, so every homeowner has the opportunity to see what the future plan is for this development. In particular, the road connections, and especially the future road connection to Sports Road. I think it's important for those homeowners in that area to know that that might be a future connection in the event that it redevelop over on Sports Road. I think that's all I have. I have a few comments, not many. They've addressed a lot of planning and zoning comments. So staff recommends approval with the comments listed in your staff report. Do you have any questions for planning?
As far as the front setbacks from 30 to 20, do you support that or no?
I do support that.
What's that going to do to parking, front parking for?
They would still have to meet the requirement of the 22-foot driveway. So they would just have to have that offset.
But if they were 30 feet, wouldn't that assure that there'd be plenty of room to park?
It would.
Okay.
Our requirement is for 22 feet on the driveway length.
Yeah. Well, I'm in favor of the 30-foot front setbacks.
Okay.
Further, Commissioner Franklin.
To Chuck's comment, I think I'm in agreement with him. You know, when you do an RS-20 PUD, but then you ask for all the variances with the side setbacks, front setbacks, rear setbacks, the people that wind up buying houses are really living in RS-10 PUD. And I'm not trying to penalize the developer here for that. I mean, he's obviously figured out our ordinance very well, but keep in mind that there are RS-10 PUDs in the city of Mount Juliet with bigger lots than this for a lot of them. Not all of them. Some of them are 17,000 square foot, obviously, and in those subdivisions, we have parking problems. I mean, we should do. And if you remember some of the other board members that we had, our vice chair really was outspoken about that. And we've been trying to lean toward getting away from, because what happens is people have to get out, back out, in and out all the time, leave their cars on the street. So I'm in total agreement with that setback. If we're gonna call this a RS-20 PUD, then let's not give away everything else too. We're gonna have cars in it.
I agree.
We
Further
certainly love for
questions?
them to follow the base zoning setbacks. So I'm okay with that too. But we do require that 22-foot in-length driveway plus the garage has to set 10 feet back. So that's why I supported the 20-foot. Any more questions for planning?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Go
ahead.
Yeah.
My question is about Sports Road. Are we planning to use exit Sports Road?
Not at this time. They're just stubbing a right-of-way reservation to Sports Road. They're not actually building a road connection, is what they're proposing today. So it's there in the future if we do want to connect. Is that right? But not actually connecting today.
It could be used in the future.
Future, yep.
Y'all seen Sports Road?
We have. So it would really be a case where someone comes in and buys all those properties on Sports Roads and redevelops, and at that time connect to this subdivision. So.
Yeah.
Is Sports Road a city street?
Yes, it is.
Well, I'm with you.
All right.
Public Works has 2 additional comments we need to add to our comments, and if there's a motion for approval tonight, we just ask that you carry these over. One's from the city sewer consultant in regards to sewer availability. They said sewer availability is contingent upon abandoning the existing sewer pump station on Nonneville Road and creating a new pump station in this development to replace that one. The second condition we need to add is we forgot to add 6-foot sidewalks are required along the Nonneville Road frontage. We forgot to add that. If you've read Public Works comments, we had a couple recommendations that the developer didn't necessarily agree with. One is to provide a
a right-of-way reservation or a roadway stub to the southern property. The staff's always consistent in providing as much connectivity as possible. We feel that if that property area redevelopment, we'd be missing opportunity to connect there. So another one is on the roads that have alley-loaded homes, we recommend some on-street parallel parking in those areas, just to give a little additional parking for events or holidays that generate additional traffic. So a little bit of additional parking in those areas would be beneficial to the development. So if you agree with any of those, you can make those conditions tonight. If not, then so be it. There's one variance they're requesting that Public Works does not support, and that's street-facing garages on roads classified as access streets. Public Works has been consistent in not supporting that. We feel access streets have a moderate amount of traffic on them, and we just feel it's less safe for vehicles having to back out of their garage into the streets. And we see these communities be more walkable. A lot of people walking on the sidewalks. That's also another reason we don't like vehicles backing out into the street. So as far as roadway infrastructure, we've asked the developer to widen Honorable Road from the main access to Wintry Trace, and they have agreed to do that. I think that's very beneficial to traffic on that road. And that's sufficient to handle the capacity that's out there today. In addition to that, having shoulders outside of that 8 foot, I think today they're 8 foot wide shoulders. So keeping the shoulders along with the widening. There's different turn lane improvements at the main access point. We have a condition that we're going to do a traffic signal warrant at 50% build out and 90% build out, and to study if a signal is warranted at that time. If it is, they're required to construct the signal within a year. So other than that, we're here to answer any questions you have. Yeah.
The widening from the entrance down to Wintry Trace, what's the plan south of Wintry for widening? Because right now I feel like this is Jackson Hills all exiting onto Beckwith, the way it looks with the road.
Yeah, the apartments that are coming in
So all the
are
way
doing
down?
it, widening 3 lanes from there to where it is currently 3 lanes.
And then it looks like going north. Are they widening north at all?
Just to get a southbound left turn lane at
Okay.
the main access.
Okay, great, thanks.
And another positive thing they did was where the current driveway is for the golf course, it's a little further south. They're moving their entrance a little farther north. In the north, it's higher, so it makes the sight distance better.
Okay.
We're going to field verify that the sight distance is good. If it's not, then I'll have to do some additional improvements to improve the sight distance. But we think moving the roadway up north a little bit will help the sight distance and safety at that intersection.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions or comments at this time?
I got a question.
Please.
Access Street I, they're asking for front-facing garage. I see an alley where it could be extended to the cul-de-sac. Those lots seem to be pretty long. Is there any particular reason why they elected not to?
Let's go ahead and ask for representation. Name and address for the record.
Good evening, Joe Haddix, Civil Site Design Group, 2305 Klein Avenue. If I heard correctly, on Access Street I for the northern lots, that's why we didn't continue the alley. At that location in particular, we're trying to do a couple things. We're running our Greenway Trail through there at the back of the lots in open space. We're trying to create a buffer between the existing properties to the north. And we felt that on the north and the northeast quadrant of this development, we're providing some of our larger lots. So the lots in blue or the purple color there are 85-foot wide. And the red lots are the 90-foot wide homes down along the creek. So at 85 and 90 foot, that you're able to get either your front facing, side facing garages on those particular lots. Felt we had the width to not run an alley at that location.
So you've considered side facing garage on these lots?
Yeah, at 85 foot wide, yes.
Okay.
You could get a side entry, which I guess we can go right into variances. We talked about the variance from a 30 foot to a 20 foot front setback. There's a substantial amount of lots shown throughout this development that are alley loaded. So at a 30 foot front, typically alley loaded home, you see dense, you're pushing that towards the right of way line to create that streetscape. At 30 feet, you end up sidewalk, 30 feet of grass. You lose a lot in that 30 feet just of kind of dead space almost. So at 20 feet, standard utility easement width, you get all the utilities down the front behind your sidewalk, but you allow that lot to move up to the front and come in from the rear, would be the thought there on that variance request.
Is that just for the alley facing or the alley loaded houses?
Yeah, so, obviously our 50 foot wide lots are all alley loaded.
And those are in the lime green?
Those are the yellow off of Access Street, G, C, and F by the townhomes. Does it? Yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to my print company. That just doesn't. Sorry. The green. It all looks green. Sorry about that.
The lime, yes.
Yeah, so I guess that goes into coming into the development along the collector street. I believe we're only calling it a collector up to the first roundabout. Maybe the second roundabout. Okay, so up to the second roundabout, you have 32 lots that front that road. We've talked with staff about the driveway access directly to the collector portion there. Originally, staff had requested shared access. We'd like to maintain a singular driveway per lot. I don't know if it makes sense to alley load those large lots. Prior to the meeting, I did talk to Andy about if we could commit to putting the driveway side by side. So it's almost functions as a shared access, but they're side by side. That way you're not staggering. And again, it's only 32 lots through that section. Apart from that, I think we're in general agreement with all the conditions. I mean, we've worked pretty close with staff on this one. We would respectfully request, your approval of the variances we have listed. The map mentioned the future road stub to the southern boundary line. I know in previous iterations of this project, it's been requested to remove that connection. We're kind of at the will of this body, I know that adjacent property owner, he's a pretty good guy. So, do whatever he would wish us to do there.
Are you in agreement with the pump station, 6 foot sidewalk on Lauderdale, additional parallel parking on the alleys?
Yeah, we had committed, I think on the alleys, we had committed to just working that out at final site plan where we could provide some, overflow parking for the residents or the guests. The pump station, yeah, we'll work it out with staff, I'm sure. Existing.
There are Super Bowl parties coming up.
Yeah.
We always plan for the Super Bowl.
We do.
Commissioner Turner?
Joe, I have a question concerning the floodplain.
Yes.
And this may be a big unknown, but it's, I guess, a concern that we've had with this piece of property ever since it's been proposed to have housing developments here, which has gone through 2 or 3 rounds. And because of the impervious services that we are now imploding upon this piece of land, with all the roofing, with all the driveways, the roadways, it just bear to make sense that when we do have these flash floods, that the flooding will be intensified not into Cedar Creek, but also into the existing lake. Therefore, the 100-year floodplain may be extended out into an unknown area. So what are we going to do to help alleviate that concern for these future homeowners that may not be currently in the 100-foot floodplain, but because of what we're doing to this piece of property and pushing the water toward that way, it's just going to make sense that there's going to be additional properties that hasn't been identified yet that will be flooded.
Right.
What are we going to do for these homeowners?
So for starters, what we've done with this layout before you, we've been able to condense everything when we're staying out of the floodplain for the majority of the site. As currently drawn, there's 13 lots that are in the existing floodplain. So we've minimized that impact. We certainly will have to do offset compensation for every scoop of dirt you put in the floodplain. We're going to have to scoop one out on our property. We'll work with Public Works on that moving forward, and they will verify that. To answer the bulk of your question, stormwater regulations over the past several years have been updated to do, what Metro calls a low impact design. Okay. Your Public Works Department has adopted that. So the goal of that is to, instead of taking water and putting it into a big pond somewhere and slowly discharging it out that everybody's accustomed to seeing, you're trying to recharge the groundwater, infiltrate the water. So you're using that technique to put it back in the ground instead of just dumping it in a pipe and let it run out a ditch. So that is in an effort to help the flash flooding, right, recharge the groundwater cycle. So that is part of your standard regulations that we will have to follow as part of this project.
Mm-hmm. But I guess that doesn't answer my question of potential pieces of property, whether it's, the ones that are adjacent to the floodplain now. Would you build those up?
On our site?
Yes.
Yeah. So part of what we will do would be, it's called a letter of map revision based on fill with FEMA. You fill in the lot, you topo survey it. We will send a certification to FEMA. They will issue a document approving it, saying, okay, our floodplain line now comes to the rear of the lot. You want to do that for your homeowners so they're not paying homeowners, flood insurance on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty standard, I think.
But would that be for some of those lots that are adjacent to the current floodplain is my question.
Yeah, anything where the current FEMA map touches a lot, which is the 13 around the cul-de-sac at the rear of access lane E. Or are you talking about the adjacent property?
I'm talking about the property. I'll have to get my glasses out to tell you what lots they are. But I'm looking at.
If you're looking at 202.
Let's look at lots 200, 199, 198, 197, and then 158, I guess it is, around that cul-de-sac. So some of those lots that are just adjacent to that floodplain, because we've put all this impervious service in this area over this whole, 194 acres.
Right.
So we've limited it to what, 40%, of a now impervious surface. That water's gonna be running down. And so there's gonna be other lots that are adjacent to this floodplain, like these 199, 198, 197, that might get flooded. Can we build those up?
Yeah. So standard is 2 feet above the FEMA 100-year floodplain elevation for your finished floor of your house.
Yeah.
So we will adhere to that. We'll also show that this development doesn't release any more we will not release any more water than what is currently being released from the property.
Yeah. Okay.
So we plan to utilize and enhance the existing lake that's down there, really turn it into a very cool amenity for the project. We got readily available stormwater storage right there.
Okay. Thank you, Joe.
Mhm.
Further, go, Commissioner Searcy?
Talking about the floodplain, the 100-year floodplain, biggest portion of those townhome lots are in the 100-year floodplain. I don't know what you think about it, but I know. I own the property adjoining this property, and I've seen water up past where you got these lots cut off several times. So that was trying to answer his question.
You looking at C101?
I'm looking at the one where the phases are.
If you go
C700.
If you go back to the 4th or 5th sheet of the set, yeah, the one right behind that.
C100.
Go one more sheet.
This way?
Yeah.
Okay.
The shaded area there represents what FEMA currently designates as the floodplain.
I see that.
Is that about where you're talking about?
Further up.
Okay.
I'll help you out a little bit since you want to know. Let's just go over here to C001. Look at the green field on the south. You see the creek? You see the trees in the middle of that green field?
Yes.
I've seen water halfway up that field. I can't hardly keep a fence there because of the floodplain.
We can certainly look at that. I mean, our intent would be to not only do obtain the FEMA study for this stretch, and we can review their elevation data. As far as insurance for your homeowners, though, they're just going to base it off FEMA map.
Okay. I mean, I was just giving that information.
No, and we appreciate that, especially at this stage, because you let us know, we can look at it and incorporate it into our final design.
Commissioner Franklin?
I have a question.
Yeah, I had a question. I may have misheard you. When you were talking earlier about, I guess, side-loaded garages, you're talking about maybe doing the driveways on the same side. Is that what you meant on the collector streets, going to driveways not common driveways, but just driveways on the same.
Yes. Like, on the collector. So lots 1 through 17 and 307 through 321.
So the garages would be facing, your neighbors' garages would
Yeah.
basically be facing each other. How does that work if the water, like if the slope is running into one of the garages? In other words, I live pretty close to a creek that floods too. And, you know, all the people who had the foresight in putting their garages on the low side of their houses tend to have less water inside their garages. I was just wondering how that would work. If you have a little bit of slope, is that even doable? Because you always want your garage on the low side of your house.
Yeah. So the thought would be garage, wall, garage. You're going to have a grass strip between. It's not going to be a shared driveway from the collector up to the house. You'd have that green strip in between. If we do end up combining driveways, you just do it right at the road. So you'd have that slope in between the garages or in between the drives going up to your garage where you could handle any kind of stormwater.
Okay.
What's the square footage on concept 50 foot?
That one more time, Mr. Searcy. I can ask the developers on. If I could go get the developer, I think that they can address the home size.
What's the average square footage of the houses you're gonna be building?
The developers are coming in right now and they can speak to that, probably price point as well.
Okay.
They're asking for 40% coverage.
Not sure I heard the question, but my name is Danny Hale
Hey,
with
Danny.
M&H Ventures. How are you, Mr. Searcy?
All right.
Good. What was the question?
What was the square footage on your concept 50? That's the smallest building you can build in it, I think, right?
Right. I'm not sure about the square footage. Do we have that? I think our restrictions said we would meet all the requirements of the city of Mount Juliet, but this project is designed to have a multitude of properties across all price points. So probably start in here with the townhomes at about 300,000. You'll see properties in here by the time we're finished at about 550. So square footage really depends on the amenities we put in the house on, those price points. But I would assume we really, you might have the townhomes at 1,500 square feet with a single family starting at about 1,600 on the smaller lots, going up to about 2,000. And then the bigger lots, there'd be more square footage. But price range is really where we drive that. And we would start at about 300,000 for the towns and probably 325 for the small single families going up into the fives on the bigger lots.
Additional questions or comments? See no additional comments this time. Let's go ahead and ask for citizen comments. Have any citizen comments on this one? See no citizen comments at this time. Ask for a motion. A lot going on. Anyone wish to make a motion?
And I got a question for Chuck.
Please.
Are you good with the 30 of the variance on the front setbacks on the alley fed lots? Or not,
For
for the alley
alley
fed?
loaded homes, the 20-foot front is okay as long as they do not increase the number of alley loaded homes that is in the currently approved plan.
Okay.
But everything else, I'd give them the 6-foot side, but I want the 30-foot front on all other lots.
I'll say this, because y'all are quiet.
Please.
I have no problem with this subdivision going in, but I just want to make sure that everybody knew about the floodplain and where some of these lots are. Because a lot of these developers, they just build these houses, and it might be 40 years before the flood comes. But then you hear all these people say, well, why didn't they tell us? You know? So I just felt like I need to say that.
Yeah.
But I'm not against this subdivision. They do it right. I think the widening of the road would help. Now, the sports road, that's just gonna be tight going out of there. And I know it's gonna be in the first 2 phases. So they probably will be using sports road before they use the other road. Because the first 2 phases are right there close to those 2 roads. So it should be some improvement done to sports road before they start letting cars go through there.
We'll make,
They are not planning on connecting to Sports Road anytime soon, only in the event that Sports Road redeveloped.
Okay.
Right now, there's no connection. They have just provided right of way in the event of future redevelopment for Sports Road.
what about Cedar Creek Drive improvements?
I don't believe they have any improvements to Cedar Creek Drive, but while you brought that up, I did want to emphasize the importance of those, both Cedar Creek Drive and Paradise Drive, having that extra way in and out of their subdivision. We learned so much from our tornado back in March. So if anybody on Cedar Creek Drive and Paradise is concerned about additional traffic concerns, know that that is a huge bonus to those existing residents in the event of an emergency to have that access, that additional access provided through this development. We had so many people trapped inside their neighborhoods during the tornado, so we learned a great deal of information on how to proceed forward with future development.
All right, y'all, let's go. Everyone there with the motion?
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
One more question for my. It's the 110 lots that are designated alley fed. Are we under that understanding? If we're gonna approve a variance and limit it to the number of alley fed lots, is that at 110? Is your understanding, or am I confused?
Sounds like what?
Our representation up here, make sure that the line green lots.
Well,
Which is lot
the
table.
85-foot lots are alley road as well. Access street, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, Are they gonna utilize this access, this alley? Right next to Stadium and everything?
I think don't those 85s come off a T and
Joe's gonna go over that with Bobby.
okay.
There is another variance request we have for front-facing garages on access streets. So we have that at the Cedar Creek Drive access. Access Street A, north of the third roundabout. I think we had Access Street I. Sorry, no, I can't read it.
Joe, can you clarify how wide the lots are along here? I'm sorry, the COVID.
Yeah, those would be, one second. Man, that color, 60s. 1 minute. Those are 50-foot, Jennifer. No, sorry, 60s. They're 60s. They're 60s. They are 60s. Let's see. Back to the original. Access Street B, which is north of the collector. Cedar Creek Drive. Access Street A, north of the third roundabout. Access Street C. And that is only for the non-alley loaded lots we are showing. Access Street I, which is some of our larger lots again that we talked about on the north side.
Joe, how many lots are you talking about then having the front load garages altogether?
That's going to take me a second. I'll let Andy. Andy, do you want to say something while I'm counting that up?
I noticed all of them. Probably a lot.
To speak a little bit on that variance request, as it would affect the number of alley-loaded lots. From our staff's perspective, Access Street B, it's really a circuitous route. It connects to other, it's not anything that I can see having any other additional traffic from basically any streets other than that one. Staff could get comfortable with the variance request for Access Street B. I think that's the simplest. I think we looked at Access Street I. Obviously, those lots are wide enough. They should facilitate the side entry. I don't know that it's entirely necessary for that street. Probably the one I'd say that I have the biggest concern with is the Cedar Creek Drive. Having front entry, you're going to have a lot of people just in that general area exiting out that way to Cedar Creek Drive. That one I do see. I could see some issues there. That could create the need for some more alley loaded lots there potentially. And I could also see the folks from Spring Valley Drive, Paradise Drive, on that section north of the third roundabout. I could see those people exiting out that way. It's a much safer egress from their area than it is. I'm maybe not quite as comfortable with that one, but to speak specifically to that variance request, I'd say in order of comfort, I can get behind B. I don't know that I is necessary. And then Access Street A north of the third roundabout, I'm less inclined to feel comfortable with. and definitely do not support the one at Cedar Creek Drive.
Did you track all that?
It's a lot of density. It's a lot of density. You know, I'll tell you where I am. I just, I'd like to see larger lots. I mean, that's really kind of where I am, for a couple different reasons, you know, just, for Nonneville Road, for this area, for the density, for the apartments that's coming in on the other side that's already been approved. And now we're just adding a lot of additional residents here. I like the larger lots, like in the blue shading and when you first come in, but then it really gets to be very crowded there in the center. And I know what you're trying to do with the multiple different houses, but I think it still can be accomplished with some larger lots. So that's where I am.
I got to tell you that even with my words, that I would have a massive challenge crafting a motion one way or the other at this moment, simply because when I look also at the color chart, my colors, I mean, I'm going to be honest, I'm having a challenge tracking the conversation and then tracking all of the comments that have been coming to this, just trying to, staff's brought several big concerns and new comments to the table today, both Public Works and Planning. We've got some feedback on this, but what we're willing to do and not willing to do, I'm having a hard time tracking because I can barely see it at the moment. And it's so small and I can't read with the color overlay. I can't pick out the lots, and the color overlays don't match the colors of the lots don't match my grid down here. So I'm really at a little bit of a struggle to figure out where we are with that, to even dare to try to craft a motion at this very moment. And that's not saying going one way or the other with that, because I think that there's workable here, but and to be honest with you, I'm struggling to find a way to pull that together.
I was tempted to make a motion, but I don't think I could be capturing everything.
There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of staff comments that you guys have brought to the table that weren't on here tonight. And almost some things almost a little work.
I think we've said we're in agreement with all staff comments and conditions, with the exception of
but tracking that setback thing, and you can already see there's some issues with
the
that
setback.
Yeah.
So I think we could agree to alley loaded lots. We could revise our request on the setback to say 30 foot to 20 foot on any alley loaded lots. And that led us into, we have a second variance about the front-facing garages on the alleys. So I think we can commit to revising the plan to show alley-loaded lots on Cedar Creek Drive. I believe staff just said they did not have a concern with front-facing on Access Street B. So that really, if we commit there, our only ask then is, I think we've decided that we could eliminate our request for Access Street I for those large lots and commit to doing side entry there. So now our request is essentially, if staff is Access Street B, which we've heard staff agree with, Access Street C for about 20 lots. Up into basically the lots up to the townhome entrance, and then north of Cedar Creek Drive along Access Street A. And I believe staff was in support.
Andy added 6 comments, I think. Wasn't it?
I had about to work with them about a sewer pump station and a 6-foot sidewalk along the Nonneville Road frontage. That was it. And both of those are standard. We should have shown the sidewalk anyway. I apologize for that.
Joe, just one more question to make it more of a mess. That west leg of the second roundabout, is that going into an alley?
Yes.
Okay.
You're putting parallel parking on widening the street to handle parallel parking on both sides of the street to the alley products.
Committed to spotting locations at the final master development plan.
I'm just saying, there's too much for me to track. I mean, there's a lot going on.
And as I look at this, I see more and more private alleys all the way up through the third roundabout on Collector Street A. And I think I still go back to my comment of just, I just wish some of these lots were larger, some of these areas, especially like on the third roundabout on Collector A, making those small lots, larger lots. I think it would match better with the blue. And, all these other lots, I mean, if you look at Providence, Baird Farms and Jackson Hills, all those have the larger lots, and they're selling like hotcakes. And I just would wish that you would have some larger lots like the blues here, more in your subdivision, and make this, when you're saying that you're going from 300 to 550, you can't buy a house in Providence for 550. They're 600,000-700,000, and you're coming in here with a lower product. And I think, one, you're missing the boat, and two, I think that we want to continue to upgrade our city with homes that are multiple price ranges, kind of like what you're doing here, but have a larger number of lots here that are up into the $600,000, $700,000 homes. And I think it alleviate some of my heartburn with just this plethora of small lots.
Chuck, I want to reiterate what you're saying, because staff as well has requested that the minimum lot size in this development be 7,500 square feet. We have made that request from the very beginning. What would be your recommendation for a minimum lot size that has their 50-foot lots. There's 110 of those at the 6,500 square feet. So the applicant can have some feedback on your vision. What would be an acceptable minimum lot size?
So your initial is 7,500? That's your initial for lowest?
The first time we saw this development, the minimum lot size was 4,500 square feet.
Wow, yeah.
So they have definitely addressed some of our comments.
Yeah. I think we can, 7,500 and up. I think we're still seeing a strong housing market. I'm still seeing a lot of, you just look at Providence and Barrett Farms, and they're Jackson Hills and Bradshaw Farms. We can do it here too.
We'll say Jackson Hills is probably selling because their lots are comparable to what we're seeing here. Jackson Hills is the only neighborhood in the city limits of Mount Juliet that can build what they want on their exterior facade.
That's not entirely accurate.
Well, not,
They have 70%.
yeah, 70%. So you can really have fun with your access elements or your construction elements outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very popular. And that's the reason why they want them. Every house doesn't look the same.
I would like to state that in 2016, we engaged Civil Site Design Group to start this project. This is the 5th year that we've been trying to get this done. Every time we get to this commission, there are new comments even though we have a recommendation for staff for approval, new comments come up. For instance, the sewer pump. Tonight was the first night we've heard that. That's probably somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 that comes on us tonight that we had not had any inkling would show up. 5 years. We spent over $200,000 engineering. We have addressed every staff comment to the best of our ability. We've got 3 or 4 things we're asking for that are reasonable. We are not builders. We don't build the homes. So these could very well end up in the $700,000 or $800,000 range. I didn't mean to limit the price range when I said that, because we are going to bring in a series of custom builders, other people to be involved, and there'll be market-driven homes. I agree with you. An entry-level home in Mount Juliet right now is about $300,000. I will tell you this as we sit here tonight. Yesterday, I looked on the multiple listing service in Nashville, out of Nashville, and I pulled up all the homes that are for sale in Mount Juliet, all price ranges. I took out new construction because that's not a product you can move into in 30 days. You have to have that build. Would anybody care to guess how many homes there are for sale in Mount Juliet today? Sir? 20 homes. 20 homes. That's not just Mount Juliet. That's the entire 37122 area code. All right. There's a desperate need for product. I think we have exhibited patience in getting where we are. We brought a plan that was very similar to this through in 2017. This commission approved it. It went on to City Council. They approved it on first reading. We got caught up with a roundabout. Since that time, we came back. We enlarged the street network to include Cedar Creek and all the way out to is that Paradise Drive there, to incorporate more of what you asked for then that you even approved then. I feel like, and I don't want to put any burden on you for this, this is on me, but I feel like no matter what we do, it's never good enough. 5 years, over $200,000 in engineering, multiple revisions. We've gotten staff recommendation. We get to the point where we don't know what we can do to get it approved. Mount Juliet desperately needs the housing. We have met every requirement within Mount Juliet except for 4 or 5 variances we're asking. and staff is largely in agreement with that. Yes, I wish they were all $1 million homes. I wish they were all 5-acre lots, but that's not the real world we live in today. We've got a beautiful amenity center plan. We've got lots of amenities. And although these are smaller lots, when you consider the open space that saves and the amount of open space we're delivering, along with the greenway, I think those are nice trade-offs for a lot size. In fact, those homes that we're talking about with small lots are generally geared to 55 and older. Although we prefer not to age restrict them, that's the market that would be going for. They don't want a big lot. They want a lot that can be maintained easily. They can buy a home they can live in and retire there and live there the rest of their lives. So with that, I just wanted to let you know our side of the story, because sometimes I've sat on these commissions before. I know how that goes. But we have done as much as anybody could do to deliver a product that, I'll be honest with you, if I put my name on it, I'm proud of it, and I put my name on this, I think it may be the best development that you've seen in Mount Juliet. But we have a provision in our restrictive covenants that meets all requirements of the city of Mount Juliet. We've met those requirements with very few variances requested that you have the ability to grant. We're asking for that, and we're asking to move forward. We still have to go to city council. They will still have to review it as well. We'll have 2 readings there. We will then have to come back with a final master development plan, and of course our preliminary and final plat. So I promise you, we put a lot of work into this. This has not been haphazard. It has been well thought out. It has been engineered. We've been in more meetings than we could possibly call for or have dreamt about on the front end. We have done everything we know to deliver a quality product here. And I think we're presenting you one tonight with, again, very few variances requested for a project this size. Project is a little bit bigger than what we thought because working with staff, we acquired some additional land to get some additional roadways in there that we really didn't want, but staff did want. So, we've done what we can. We feel like it's time to move forward. And again, I appreciate your side of the bench because I've sat there before. I've been doing this for about 35 years, but we have been on this one for 5 years now.
And I'm going to have the same concern. This goes through. There's too many houses. These lots are tiny, and I would go with the recommendation of our staff to have a minimum of 75 square feet per lot. And if it gets passed and goes through the BOC, I'm going to have that same request. So just know.
Anybody dare to craft a motion? No action. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Michaels can clarify as a positive recommendation. As a reminder. Is that right?
No action is a positive recommendation.
Is that right?
No action is it does work as a positive recommendation. That's correct.
Yeah, if normally it's a voting item, but if that's probably the reason why the hesitation, because they're normally voting items, not recommendation items. So a voting item, and keep in mind, it goes forward regardless whether or not we give it a positive or a negative. So I would encourage, if you feel strongly about anything issue on here, is to either make your recommendation to the positive or to the negative, one way or the other, but put your comments in there so that they can be worked out at the Board of Commission level. However, if not, if we take no action, we ask one more time, then we're going to take no action and 'Cause we've sat here asking for a motion long enough, in my opinion. Yeah, but they don't desire to defer, so we need an action.
Okay. I'll make a motion for a negative recommendation.
There's a motion. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. Got it?
If I could. A lot of people here probably don't know this. Probably the city commission doing negative recommendation. They unanimous. You changed a great deal between the time you received that at the planning commission. And I think Dudley wound up making an extra $20 million probably because it changed so much. And Dudley wanted to do the same thing, really. He wanted to come in with lots and lots of micro lots. This is the best one that they brought in to me. This is absolutely, I'm not going to sit here and say that this is a horrible development by any stretch, because it's not. It does bring a lot. There's a lot of pluses on this. Walking trails, the amenity package, there's a lot of good in this development. But the thing that I've got the most heartburn on is there's going to be 3 to 4 cars for every lot in this subdivision. And they're going to have to back out and come in, and somebody's going to want a boat, unless the homeowner association makes them go off-site with that. There's going to be a lot of stuff in this development. It's going to be very difficult to move around in here. And so, to Chuck's point, at least on the end, getting into these developments on both sides, they really do need to charge them with larger lots. If they're going to come in with smaller lots, at least for me, they're going to have to come in with some bigger lots, because that's where it's going to be the worst. And it just isn't here, especially on the north side. These are little bitty lots up here. The ones on the south side work for me, but that's my comments.
So I have a motion and a second for a negative recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Against? Tie vote. Mr. Michaels, tie vote. Fails, right? Yep.
The
because
tie
it's a
vote
majority of the
will
planning
fail.
commission.
So
That means that is a
the
positive
motion
recommendation
failed.
to the planning commission. Or to the board of commissioners, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, let me clarify. The motion failed, so the motion for a negative recommendation.
Yeah, it was the
Failed.
vote was for a negative recommendation to the board of commissioners, and it was a tie vote.
Charles, can they have another vote, make another motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, if the issue is with the lot sizes in that variance, I think we could commit to getting the minimum lot size up to 7,500 if that would get us to a positive recommendation and moving forward. That, 1,000 square feet is not going to make or break the development. So we could get those minimum lot sizes up to what staff is recommending. So that may make a difference in the way you look at it.
I got too many moving parts with this alley stuff, and I can't read my plan. I mean, I'm sorry, I can't decipher this. So don't. I'm not. Would anyone care to table another motion on this, or we're going to move forward with the action that we've taken? So we can just move forward with this and it becomes a positive recommendation, with the only comments being the comments that were on record as we came in tonight. Any comments made tonight don't go forward.
So we need to make another motion. Said that we could have a minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet.
Can we go back through those 6 or 8 or however comments there were? Because, I have a much easier time with this at 7,500 square feet minimum, because I think this is an awesome development. There's tons of stuff in here, but Chuck's right. There's too many houses in here and you need to spread them out a little. So if we can go back through, if it's going to go anyway, as a positive recommendation, we might as well figure a little bit out, you know.
My thought exactly.
Okay.
That's where I was trying to lead us.
Yeah,
to.
okay, sorry about that.
There's just too much for me to track to try to get that pulled together.
Thank
Yes,
you. Mr. Barlow and myself were discussing, would it be productive for Andy to go over street by street what variances he would support and which ones he wouldn't? I think that would bring some clarity to the variance and the alley load and the side entry versus front entry. So take it away, Barlow.
Yeah, and probably also
Let me find
for
a sheet where I can read what road is what road.
the.
I mean, literally right now with
Yeah,
the lights.
C100 is probably the best.
Because not the plans that are black and white don't have the roads on them.
You want me to go get our full set?
I literally cannot read them right now. I promise you.
And everything else. What about C?
I got another pair of glasses.
I guess somebody's going to have to
Okay.
go get a check.
Okay. So wanted to hit, I believe, engineering, public works. We have our comments all listed within your staff report. The two additional comments were sewer complying with the availability request, and then 6-foot sidewalks on Nonneville Road. Those are the only two additional that we have. Everything else is included currently in your comments.
The parallel parking still, Andy,
Yes, we do have parallel parking listed.
as a new comment.
It's in our
It is?
comments.
Okay,
It's
okay.
it's a recommendation, but they didn't agree with it. But you guys can make that
Okay,
as an
perfect.
additional condition.
I think the thought behind that is if you wish to strengthen that to a requirement, then we would be supportive of that. Additionally, the same thing with the right of way. The idea with the right of way going to the south, understanding Mr. Cersei owns that and probably has absolutely no desire to ever see that developed, but a right of way reservation, we just don't want a spike strip over there. We've run into that in the past. If somebody just wanted a driveway access to get through there, we wanted that to be a possibility. So really only two additional comments that we have. Speaking specifically to the access streets having front-facing garages, we do support access street B and access street A north of the third roundabout up to Paradise Drive. The others we do not support, and I believe that takes everything that we had.
So you're okay with access streets, A and B? Or not okay with that?
We are.
Yes, A and B, but A only north of the third roundabout. So, yeah.
Right.
You know my feelings.
Chuck and I had talked about going with a variance on a 20-foot setback on the alley loaded product, but not any of the others.
Okay.
And I don't know if that was any kind of agreement. I think maybe just you and I did. So it's more members.
So like, we're going to give a variance of 20 foot for alley loaded products, but he can't come in and say, well, now my whole development is going to be alley loaded.
Right. You had to cap it in a number, and I think it's 110, at least on this plan.
So with the 7,500 square foot lot, then none of those existing can be moved over to alley load homes after tonight, or off more than this, more than the 110.
Yes.
Okay.
And David, also like under the public works comments under floodplain management, Number 5, it says, please consider revising the Frisbee golf holes to limit going in the greenway. I'd make that a requirement. This would reduce the risk of people getting hit by Frisbee on a greenway.
Mr. Turner, on your comment about no additional alley lots, I think the developer was considering adding some alleys to the Cedar Creek Drive access street. We see that as being beneficial instead of street facing, but that's
Are you
the,
saying they would go behind?
yes.
So north of Cedar Creek.
He said they're okay either way on that, either making them wider for side entry or creating an alley loaded. We just don't want street facing garages where they're backing out into the street on those lots.
Joe, how many of those lots are 6,500? Maybe you know, Jennifer. 110.
Stuff.
Yeah, that'd be too tight.
On the alley fed lots, the reason that I was good with the 20-foot setback in the front is because you're moving the thing up and allowing life in the rear of the structure. I don't know if any of you's been to the Province on the little marketplace thing. It's sharp and they're right up on the front and that works. It's a different product. Look, yeah.
Yeah, and Goodall Homes did that on Bradshaw as well. They did a smaller front setback for the alley loaded products.
I've got 11 conditions.
What variances do you have captured?
I have for.
You care to make that in the form of a motion?
Got to read my own writing here.
Feel free, motions can be edited as well.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'd like to make a motion to approve based on the following conditions. And there are 11 of them. One is the addition of the sewer pumping station as recommended by staff. Number 2 is the 6-foot sidewalks on Nonaville Road. Number 3 is citing additional parallel parking in the alleyways for overflow. Number 4 is a minimum 7,500 square foot lot size. Number 5, providing an alley for Cedar Creek Drive. Or wider lots for side entry. Thank you. Keep me going. Keep me going. Okay with the 20-foot setbacks on the alley loaded lots. 30-foot for other non-alley loaded lots. We have a maximum of 110 alley loaded lots. Limit the Frisbee golf to not being within the greenway. And it kind of tag teams on one of the other conditions, but no street facing garages north of Cedar Creek Drive, unless they're wider lots. Before I conclude the motion, I'll just make sure I captured everything.
We supported the street facing garages on Access Street A, north of the third roundabout.
Okay.
And Street B and Access Street B.
B and C,
B and A.
B and A support street facing garages. I don't know that one. Access I is only side facing garage? Okay. And Access Street I, only side facing garages. It's a
That's your
complicated
motion?
one. That's my motion.
Did we capture all the variances listed on the sheet? Like 40% lot coverage for all lots?
I'm gonna second that motion to get it out here, by the way. Go ahead.
I'm just making sure we captured all the lots, that's the variances that staff has.
So the variances that we supported were to allow the 40% lot coverage on all lots. I'm just making sure Jill has this, so I'm gonna go slow. We support the 95% primary facade materials, so 95% brick or stone on all four sides of each home. We support the variance to omit the perimeter fencing around the townhome development. I think for variance number 3, we've addressed in David's motion already. Is that correct, Andy? Andy, what about 4 lots along Collector Street shall be allowed individual driveway access? I think we can remove that comment.
As long as they meet the 100 foot.
Or y'all are-
Or a shared driveway. Or a connected driveway, right.
So number 4, lots along Collector Street shall be allowed individual driveway access as long as the lots remain 100 feet wide or they provide shared driveway access. And I believe number 1 has already been addressed as well. The 6-foot side setbacks and the 20-foot front setbacks for alley load.
Yes. Motion so amended.
Is that added
Based
to
on
your
staff comments.
Yes.
recommendation?
I still support it second. But I would like to amend one thing. To remove the recommendation under Public Works comments of number 5.
Which one's that?
That is a connection to the south property.
I actually have one more. The lots to the south or any lot abutting the required perimeter buffer should provide a privacy fence on the interior of that buffer. We have a problem with homeowners thinking that that's their property, and that removes the intent for the buffer for the adjoining property owner. So a fence located on the interior of any lot that's closely adjoining the open space there around the perimeter.
Agreed. Are those additional comments okay, Commissioner Rast?
Yes, motion so amended.
Motion and a second. If y'all wrote that down and kept up with it, you're all doing really good. That is a motion and a second for a positive recommendation with everything we just said there. I feel confident Ms. Johnson has got it captured. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Positive recommendation.
Thank you. I know it's a late night.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, Gary, thank you for letting us have 7,500.
Back on.
You can have mine, Jennifer.
The next item on our agenda is item 12.1. It's a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners to review the zoning ordinance amendment for section 6-102A, permitted uses table, commercial general. Ms. Hamlin.
Good morning.
Good morning. Where's the coffee?
Where's our Dunkin' Donuts?
Yeah.
All right. So I have been working with Commissioner Justice in an effort to bring more desirable and a better variety of businesses within District 1. As he stated, we have a very intense automotive use along the Highway 70 corridor. So I have crafted a zoning ordinance amendment that Charles has amended for me. So I'm going to read that to you because it happened after the packets went out. So you see on the third page where I have removed the uses that would be undesirable uses for automotive in the CG use listing, that left one use available for that automotive under that automotive use listing, which would be auto and home supply store. So if this is approved tonight and move forward with a positive recommendation, I will be changing number 4 to read the following. The only permitted activity in CG under automotive and marine craft sales, service, and repair is auto and home supply store. All activities accessory and or incidental to an auto and home supply store, including but not limited to vehicle repair, installation, and diagnostics, shall take place indoors in an enclosed building no less than 100 feet from adjacent property line with residential zoning. The sale of any vehicles for transportation or leisure, including but not limited to automobiles, motorcycles, RVs, and boats, is prohibited as a use, accessory, or incidental to the auto and home supply store. Outdoor storage and display of tires and other automotive transportation parts is prohibited. So that addresses that comment number 4. And we would also be removing automotive parking and outdoor sales and equipment services. These would be permitted uses in CI, CMU, and industrial. So I think not only does that encourage diversity for new builds on Lebanon Road and in that corridor, it also encourages them to branch out into those other areas of Mount Juliet where we don't have some of those services. So I support this variance. I think I understand the comments that we got from citizens and how it may create a monopoly. But as Commissioner Justice pointed out tonight, we have 19 of those in a mile. So I think there's plenty of competition out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the commission? I just got one. If we just say that this moves forward, everything gets approved at BOC, does anybody get if something comes up that it's the right place and just not allowed, can we grant that variance?
They would have to rezone to where it would be allowed. I'm glad that I came back up here because we do have one, a Midas, that was submitted today or yesterday for the next month's meeting, and we would consider that grandfathered in as we haven't had this meeting tonight. So you will see a Midas next month, but that would be the last.
Gotcha.
The comment that was submitted, they also mentioned redevelopment of Mount Juliet Road and Lebanon Road, that gas station that's up there, and do a higher end gas station and car wash. Would that also be?
That would be prohibited. The gas station would be allowed, but the accessory car wash would not be permitted.
Okay.
I think that's a great opportunity for a wonderful development, and I'm not sure a gas station and a car wash would be good there. That's just my opinion.
Discussion, questions, comments? This time we'll call for, please, Commissioner Searcy.
I know I see all these red circles around here on this picture. All these places have been here almost as long as I've been here.
Yes, they have.
They ain't going nowhere. I understand that.
Well, they didn't have cars back then.
I don't think we've had about maybe two the auto shop on Lebanon Road.
Christian Brothers.
Christian Brothers.
Yes, sir.
And I can't think of another one that's been built in the last 3 or 4 years.
Mr. Cersey, that's because what they do is they go in existing structures that aren't in compliance with our ordinances. For instance, Mike Automotive moved over to Clarine's Treasures. And you can see he has cars parked all the way up to Highway 70. That's a prime example of what this would prevent. Not to call out Mike, so I use him. That's a great example. And it would not affect anybody that's existing.
You don't think making all those non-conforming uses would make them more valuable?
Probably.
Which might be okay.
I just, I made up my mind. I'm going to vote against it.
Do you all have any more questions for me?
I do not.
No.
Thanks, Annie.
It's time let's call for citizen comments. Any citizen wishing to make comments, welcome, encouraged to do so. For the record, I do want to let us know in the citizen comments section that we have been provided one email. All of the commissioners received a copy here tonight. And it was in regards to the zoning ordinance amendment 6-102A, which is what we are hearing right now. And very good email, printout, and showing and noting some examples to support what they were saying within the email. So to get that on record, it will be part of the record for the meeting tonight. Every commissioner was provided a copy of such. So with that being said, no citizen comments. I would like a motion in regards to this item on the agenda.
I'll make a motion for a positive recommendation back to the Board of Commissioners.
It's a motion and a second for a positive recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? Is a positive recommendation. Somebody better give me this motion right here. I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Yeah, I'll second that one as well. It's a motion and a second for adjournment. All in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? We are adjourned.